halls are back here. And then for anybody that hasn't been in this room yet, there are some bathrooms. If you go back out the main door and turn right down the hallway, there's some bathrooms over in that corner. We're gonna have some more members joining us tonight, but we've got a lot on the agenda, so we're just gonna get right into it. And everybody should have a packet. It's nice to see you all. I feel like it's been a while. And we are gonna do probably the first hour of presentations with Kevin Madsen, our recovery officer. But first I'm gonna go through a couple different handouts that we have in this document. So we don't have a PowerPoint presentation today after the updates. We'll just use these documents and kind of work our way through them. And the first one we have is an update to the timeline, just so you all know what's happening next. So today's work session, we're gonna go to 7, and then the next meeting is July 20th. That'll be our last meeting for the steering.
Really?
And then after that meeting, we go into our final round of public engagement, which is review of the draft plan in early August. And I'll talk a little bit later about what that engagement was gonna look like, and we have some questions for you all about how we should be moving forward with that. September will be county management review of the draft plan. October will be commissioner briefing, and then in November, mid-November, we do both of our public hearings before the planning board and board of commissioners. So we're wrapping it up. Any questions on timeline? But the next meeting in July, our last meeting, you all will have a copy of the draft plan, and we will be going through it page by page. And there won't be any surprises in there. You've all seen the actions and the policies and the maps. So this is just putting it in a format that makes sense and slapping some page numbers on it, essentially. Yeah.
So our meeting on July 20th, is that another 4 to 7 here, or?
That's a regular meeting. That's our 5:30 meeting at the Beach.
So that's July 13th, July 20th. I'm sorry, Board's gonna review.
July 13th.
Okay.
Y'all July 20th?
July 13th. Yes, yeah. July 20th is the planning board review. So that is what our timeline looks like. It got pushed out a little bit for management review, so November is our adoption schedule. One thing to be aware of, we had mentioned the cover of the plan. It's something that we were talking about who should design that. And Buncombe County is awarded dollars for a public art fund through, let's see how we do this. So Strategic Partnerships Department is who's managing that. They are going to be working with the Swannanoa Arts Collective to have that cover image created. And we gave them a little bit of guidance about what we were looking for, but ultimately that artist is going to do an original piece. We'll retain just the digital rights to use it on the cover, and then they will retain the artwork. So that's what will end up being that cover design. Questions, Carol? So now Kevin is going to go through some processes happening in Swannanoa, and then we have someone from Riverlink that's going to speak to us, an update from Mountain True, and then we will talk about some of the other events coming up.
Thank you, Shannon. Well, it's good to see everyone again. I think last time I spoke to y'all, it was the meeting at the school a couple months ago. But happy to share another lien recovery update with y'all. And if you've got questions, feel free to ask along the way. It could be about an hour to kind of cover everything, but we're going to cover 3 or 4 different topics in the presentation. And what we're going to start with is the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. I know this is a topic that gets brought up quite often. And I think the last time I was at an SGA meeting, it was a discussion as well. We often refer to HMGP, Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, for the acquisitions, but it's also a multifaceted program that incorporates elevations and infrastructure projects. But the main item to talk to you right now is what has been awarded, and what's been awarded with HMGP is acquisitions. So the properties are getting bought out through the program. It is a program that is funded 75% by FEMA and 25% by the state of North Carolina. We have no local cost, no local expenses incurred from the program, and it is to buy properties of pre-disaster fair market value. In the Swannanoa area, we've got about 60 properties that are incorporated in HMGP, And not all of those have been awarded yet. We have had different batches of awards. We'll do that on the next slide here, but key things are federally funded, state funded, it's also state led. So state of North Carolina, specifically North Carolina Emergency Management, did the administration of the program. We're using a state-centric model. So they're hiring the contractors that'll be working as the project managers, and they will also incorporate the appraisers, the demolition company, and of course, the closing attorney's office, all kind of coordinated under that umbrella of the contracted project manager. That program, like we've talked about before, but it is a strictly voluntary program. So it's opt-in by the community members that want to participate in the program. Pre-disaster market value, not tax value, not present value, but whatever their parcel of property was worth, September 25th, 2024, that's the market value they look at for this buyout program. So with regards to our current footprint for this program, we have received awards for Group 1 and Group 2. We held a kickoff meeting on March 4th for those properties. 47 properties, which equated to about 38 actual parcels between mixed use, some commercial development had multiple on one parcel. But those properties were about $19 million for that initial kickoff. We had our first closing of properties on May 26th. So those that kicked off on March 4th have actually progressed to closing. We are meeting with the demolition contractors now, once again, led by the state, contract at the state level. We're doing the permitting coordination on the county side with floodplain management and air quality. The contractor will be doing demolition over the next few months, at which point they will be removing all structures, all permeable surfaces, addressing utilities, underground storage tanks, and then ultimately they will be grading the part of the property that has been disturbed. So once they remove the property out, they will grade it and then seed it. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Do they do anything with the septic tank and septic?
They will go based on our local ordinance and state guidance. Most often it is filling that septic tank with sand. So any USTs, underground storage tanks, are going through basically the proper remediation process through that course. Just like utilities, they won't touch main lines, but any private utilities on the parcel, they'll be removing those or capping those as well. One key thing though is this does include grading and then seeding for the disturbed space. It does not incorporate any mitigating efforts. So one thing they cannot do is bring fill into these parcels with this hazard mitigation grant program. It's just basically removing the structures through this property. Property is being funded through it. Once again, federal, state fund going to the county under a deed restriction. So at closing, ownership is going from the property owner, like selling to a private party. Parcel, land, everything goes from them as the seller. The county is the new owner with the deed restrictions, and then it's basically owned by the county in perpetuity. With the deed restrictions, it often is green space. We'll be looking in the future as far as what next steps could be for those parcels. There's a planning committee that's looking at that internally to see what all our options are for a strategic approach. We're very early in. Demolitions likely won't be until fall. We have another group. You'll see Group 3 and 4 here as well, which is over $100 million, 204 properties that have presently been approved. Group 3 was approved the first week in May. Group 4 was approved just the other week. So those 204 properties are going to be going into a kickoff meeting, likely in early fall. Similar format, kickoff meeting provides guidance to all the property owners, what next steps look like. They're given direction on how appraisals work, often coordinating appraisals at that meeting for scheduling in the upcoming weeks. Going through pre-disaster fair market value assessment. It is a large footprint. 204 properties is a very large project. The other groups were a quarter of that size. So timing will likely be extended going through that process. Once appraisals have been completed, and they do so in partnership with the property owners, have to always look at duplication of benefits, if they've received insurance funds, other funding streams as well. All that comes into play. So some properties are very easy, some are very complicated. So that's why everything's looked at individually from the parcel. And then of course, once it goes through that process, it then goes to closing once an offer has been accepted. Property owners do have the right to challenge that appraisal if they want to go that route. And then there's different mechanisms based on if they do do their own appraisal. It's paid for by the property owner for that next step, and then 2 pathways based on the variation in the appraisal prices. Yeah, Carol?
The 26 properties that are shown as pending
Yes.
additional review, where is that review level? What level is it? State, federal, county?
Everything's been submitted to the federal government, so everything is at federal review. We don't have guidance on the last 10 as far as, actually, we don't even have the full list of the 62 yet. That award just came through the other week. We're still waiting on the list of those properties. So property owners in group 4, if anyone is waiting for that update, we're still waiting from the state for the list of the actual properties before we can make contact with the property owners. All group 3 property owners have been reached out to already and coordinated with them. One of the key things that a reason that we often see a delay through this process is if there is a property that has any type of easement, right-of-way issues, not right-of-way issues, but collaboration with DOT, looking at that, because once those deed restrictions are in place, it is in perpetuity. So that's often a reason.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Good word.
Yeah. So, all right. I think you answered it. Keep going.
Okay, you're good. Yeah, and just if I didn't quite get what you're looking for, let me know and we can circle back to it as well. So at this time, acquisitions are the primary focus. Elevations are still in review. They are at state and federal review right now, so they have not progressed as far as acquisitions. That process often takes a long time. There's a lot of work on the front end. Acquisitions, the appraisals, all of it happens after award. There's a lot of engineering review that takes place on elevations prior to going to review at the federal government. So that takes a little bit longer. We have roughly 84 properties in for elevations right now. But those are the 2 prominent programs with hazard mitigation grant program. Acquisitions, where we're buying the property, demolishing the structures, grading, seeding, turning it into green space. Elevations, where they take basically a structure that is capable of being lifted. One caveat with that program is they don't do repairs of the structure. That structure has to be ready to lift, and often if it's a slab or depending on the construction type, it can preclude people from that program. But that's where we are with hazard mitigation grant program. It is a long process. We are very lucky to see so many awards already at this point. And we will be working with those 204 property owners in the coming month once we do that kickoff meeting on what next steps look like for them. I need done a lot of HMGP. Anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, this is the fastest I've ever seen an HMGP program stood up in probably our country. One of the first things out of the gate was when they got here from FEMA. We took them on a site visit and hit old US 70 B tree. So that was the quietest car I think I've ever ridden in.
I was actually talking at Warren Wilson this morning and talking about a previous HMGP project in Colorado Springs, which took 5 years for 23 properties to get to the finish line. So we're definitely seeing, to Nate's point, good timing on this effort.
Is the county going to accept all the properties that come through the state and the federal as being approved?
Everything's already gone through a review process prior to getting to this point. A lot of county effort went in on the front end for this as well.
Already been accepted pretty much by the county.
Any other? Yes, sir.
Amongst all the acquisition tracts that have teared down, are there any historical structures or that would have been constrained by not being torn down?
There's usually an EHP review if it's needed. The one nice thing about this program, unlike the demolition program and some of our earlier more response short-term recovery efforts, is we have more time to do additional review phases. Case in point, demolition, when they were occurring under PPDR, everything was treated as asbestos contaminated. We're doing actual testing on all the properties now. I don't have the specifics on each individual parcel. I know that some of them that we have reviewed, necessarily haven't approved, did have historical elements to it. And sometimes that can be, it's part of the process. We don't usually speak to the specifics until they get to the closing point when the county owns the parcels. Yes, ma'am.
Forgive me if somebody's already asked this, I'm sorry to blank. Is there a map of where these locations are?
Not publicly available right now. Same concept. It is a voluntary program. Property owners have the right to withdraw from the program up until closing. So whenever that gets to the point the county owns the property, then that will be part of our planning process on next step. But we usually are very thoughtful of private information on the property owners up until that point. Oh, go ahead. Yes.
I guess just to follow up on that, once the county makes offers and they're accepted, then there'll be a map?
So one clarifying point, the county doesn't make offers. We are taking the ownership of the property, but as far as all the funding and coordination, that's all with our state entity and then funding with the federal side. So we are a collaborator, but as far as like the actual offer perspective, that's based under that state contract and the federal guidance. With regards to mapping, that is one thing we'll likely be doing as far as mapping the properties once they're acquired. We will likely see a lot of the properties in the current group 1 and 2 acquired over the next few months. September is the last closing we're aware of from group 1 and 2. For the 3 and 4, those 204 plus properties, closings could be spring of next year. So until it gets to that point, they wouldn't be in the mapping perspective. So it'll be constantly an additional element added to that. Yep.
Thank you. I have another question, which is, do you have data of the properties that have been approved at the county level? How many of them were owner occupied and how many of them were rental, either long-term rental or short-term rental properties?
Do not have that readily available. We did have a number of rental properties that were in the program. So the complexity of the numbers specifically for each of them, don't know. Commercial, residential, rental, were all eligible for the process.
And at some point, we can maybe get those numbers of how many commercial, how many owner occupied, how many rental units.
Potentially, I'll have to look and see what's available. I do know, like I said, that we know really pretty much once they go to closing, then we'll do an effort on the mapping standpoint and then look at the long-term planning effort. One of the key things with the parcels is the location, if they're contiguous to a waterway. HMGP properties are not only for floodplain properties, also landslide properties. There are some components of landslide parcels in the program as well, in group 3 and group 4. So a lot of different moving parts to that element for the process. So we're very young in the development of kind of the next steps on it at this point. Yeah, Carol, go ahead.
This is just for purposes of like understanding the scope of this. And you may not have this information, but do you guys have the data on how many HMGP applications and acquisitions by the county there were from 2004, Francis and Ivan?
Yes. And all those are cataloged and FEMA deed restricted and easily found in the Register of Deeds and GIS. I can tell you that Old Candler Town Road is a large collection, some in the city of Asheville from Francis and Ivan. 70 and old US 70, you'll find some small groupings around there.
But you don't know the total, like you don't know.
Off the top of my head, I don't, but we did 2 batches on previous HMGP. We had the biggest batch we had was 2004, but the ones on like Old Candler Town Road and Candler were actually from the 90s.
Right.
And I would say, Nate, you'd agree, this is definitely the largest project that we've worked with on HMGP before.
Lived it, breathed it, can see them all in my head. Yeah, absolutely.
Really talked through this already, but of the groups 1 and group 2 that have already been approved through the process, you can see that all the appraisals that were completed, all the offers were extended, and all the offers were accepted. So when we talk about pre-disaster market value, it's a good indicator whenever we're seeing that type of turnaround on accepting the offers on the front end. We've already had 14 closing complete, 3 that are currently scheduled, and the rest of them are going through the HUD-1 process, getting the money from the state finance office to the closing attorney. So that is progressing well from that standpoint. We mentioned this earlier, but that kickoff meeting for groups 3 and 4, best guess scenario at this point is September timeframe is whenever that kickoff meeting will occur. And then timing 4 to 6 months down that road, we often see the appraisals come together and the offers as well. But once again, it's a very large project, so timing may be extended based on that footprint. Likely going to take into 2027 going through this process. We already hit on this, but wanted to really focus on the deed restriction part very quickly. These properties will be deed restricted. All of them have the same standard language, whether it's landslide, blue line property, a flooded property. There's a deed restriction that the state's been working on based on the federal guidance. It is part of the process when they go to closing, and it's uniform across the board. So they will remain in county ownership in perpetuity. There are very few limitations of which they can transfer from county ownership, but we won't have structures on them. Few eligible elements are gazebos for parks. You look at Charleston, they've got a nice park down there that was an HMGP property. So there are different programs within our FEMA Region 4 that have been approved in the past. But once again, those are prolonged processes. We often have to go to FEMA Region 4 for approval. Right now, it'll be a variation to the deed restriction. So HMGP is not a quick process. Part of the reason why we're developing a strategic approach, just the sheer number of properties that will be coming available for us to put in the assessment process for planning. But land use for these must be compatible with open space, recreation, wetland management strategies. There's very clear language in the deed restrictions as far as what can and can't be used. If it's within the deed restrictions, we don't have to go for Region 4, often because of the limitations for any type of park project, greenway project, we would then go for Region 4 for communication. And that could be a matter of months, could also be a matter of years, depending on Region 4 capacity. So we kind of front load that expectations management with regard to the program, but ultimately we're making sure that our HMPP land use is in compliance with the county's open space property, our planning process. Any questions about what next steps? Yeah, go ahead.
The deed restrictions, what about agricultural use, and is that compatible with the?
It is. Yes, I can say when I was in Johnston County, we had Hurricane Matthew properties that were HMGP, and they were leased out to our ag partners for either livestock or for planting.
Okay, great.
And quite frankly, we'd love to see some that would help us with land management, and we need more community gardens. So I think we can all agree that'd be a fun use.
Yeah, and often those don't require us going to FEMA Region 4. So there's a lot of opportunity within that perspective that we can look at. Whether it's a lease agreement or a county-led effort, there's plenty of opportunity. Once again, looking more into the next year timeframe on what those next steps look like. And I'm ahead of my slide. But yeah, so we do have a current planning team that's meeting right now. It's internal, but it's everyone from Nate's team in the planning department to Jennifer's team with agriculture and land use, the recovery office, all of our other partners that are looking at all the different elements that we need to be identifying for these properties. We also have, I think everyone's been aware, the emergency watershed protection grant funding, about $33 million, $3 million for technical assistance that was awarded. That will be going to 207 sites for watershed protection efforts. We also have the STRAP funding, it's about $800,000 on stream bank restoration. Those efforts are be working within our different waterways throughout Montgomery County. And some of these HMGP properties will be part of that process as well. So there'll be a lot of programs that are working in collaboration with each other on what next steps look like too. With that being said, I just want to highlight very quickly our Helene recovery plan. We have many projects, 31 projects to be specific, that are focused on Buncombe County, 114 in total, including our municipal partners. One of the big ones is our cultural asset restoration project, and that is very much focused on our parks, Owen Park specifically, but libraries, community centers, a lot of different elements to this project. So we have one project that is a very one-to-one ratio project. This is a project with many sub-projects. One of the key highlights is there's another community meeting next week, or I'm sorry, tomorrow. The week has got ahead of me. So tomorrow, same day as our commissioners briefing, we are continuing to build off the feedback from that initial community meeting, the feedback from that. We do also have FEMA public assistance funding has been awarded, A&E, architectural and engineering funding, that is helping for the contract to actually build out the plan for that approach. With that initial round of FEMA funding, we often talk about FEMA obligations, public assistance projects. A&E is just the first step. So it's what we call a version project. It gives us funding to do the engineering, to do the studies, to do the analysis of what the needs are. We then conversion that project based on the report for the costing, and that will give us additional funding for actually doing work at the park. So one of the key things we talk about some of the long-term collaborations with our FEMA partners is those funding streams. Just because we're seeing several of the obligations being completed, a lot of them have a second phase to them as well. So we will have additional FEMA public assistance money. We've also put in for the hazard mitigation grant program infrastructure, that same HMGP funding pool, but focused on a different aspect for the park. And we're looking at incorporating HUD funding, the community development block grants, for another funding stream as well. So think of Owen Park as a puzzle. We've got many pieces with the funding streams coming in that we're navigating through, getting the park restored and then resilience for future events as well. Another key thing is we're looking at not just those big grant funding sources. CDBG-DR has $10 million caps for commercial district, $15 million for infrastructure. HMGP, we've got about 22 projects that equate to about $76 million for our current application pool on the infrastructure side. But we also have other funding streams. So PARTIF, the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund, that there was a Helene recovery aspect to that, and that Helene recovery funding stream gave us funding for boat launches for 3 of our river parks. So increased accessibility along the French Broad River. You know, it's not Swannanoa River, but we are seeing these additional grants come up that are providing us additional park accessibility and resources available. But even it's not always accessibility. It could be a much needed stormwater project. And we're seeing that with some of our infrastructure and resiliency improvements down Lake Julian. So just know that we have a lot of moving pieces that go into some of these projects. So when you see that we're 25% complete on cultural asset restoration, it's about 20 different pieces of the puzzle that are coming in, not just the funding streams, but the projects themselves. So just a little bit of clarity as we're doing our briefings on the recovery plan, understanding of how these reports are coming out and how a lot of this is coming together with multiple funding streams. Hot topic. I know this one's really important. See Carol excited over there. We do want to also talk about another one of our Helene recovery projects, the commercial district revitalization. It's part of that economic development focus area. With this one, we're looking at that HUD funding, community development block grant, the disaster recovery funding. This is our sidewalks in Swannanoa, so Warren Wilson Road to Whitson Avenue. That is a big component there. We also have the sidewalks that was awarded several months ago for $979,000, almost $1 million in the Beacon Village area along Whitson. We're looking at other funding streams as well. I want to say $2 to $3 million. So our sidewalks could be about a $13+ million project with all the funding streams that are coming together. But this is one that has gone from pre-screening into actual application and has been moved forward from the state into that full application. So we are looking at the next public hearing for sidewalks in Swannanoa to be on July 21st. It'll be at the commissioners meeting. We did our initial one last month and we had an open public hearing, public comment period. We received 5 comments, 5 emails from the community, very proactive in regard to this effort. In addition to sidewalks in Swannanoa, we have what's called our commercial district remediation and revitalization. It is leveraging our code compliance information and data set to build an application packet of around $10 million for HUD funding as well on CDBG-DR to help provide opportunities for property owners that are in the commercial districts, very much in Swannanoa, and allows them to get funding for demolishing unsafe properties, looking at coming up with code compliance for repairs and efforts in that product as well. So it's really a great effort if we kind of see this one move forward. It has also transitioned from pre-screening to full packet with state. So both of our current CDBG-DR packets have moved to that effort. And then of course, after the July 21st hearing, we'll gather all the final data sets and then move it into final packet. And those are due August 4th for the DR funding.
When do they let people know?
Or was that Carol?
When did they notify whether you're getting the money or not?
So that is the big question. We don't have clarity. With both CDR, Commercial District Revitalization Grant, and the infrastructure grant, both parts of CDBG DR, they're doing multiple rounds. So our thoughts are that with this initial round, we'll see something in the fall for the award before they open that second round. We don't have clarity yet on when the next rounds will be, but we're expecting, not 6 months or a year down the road, but a quicker turnaround time on those.
This round, is it just 40 million that's released for this round? Am I right?
For the CDR, and then for infrastructure, it'll be 54 million. Infrastructure will be the NOFO notice of funding opportunity will open on July 6th. So infrastructure isn't currently open, only CDR is. And beyond the commercial district program, want to also talk about the Renew NC program. Once again, this is a state-led program that we're meeting with and supporting the efforts on, but it is that funding stream that's coming through the HUD funding for CDBG-DR. And I think most everyone's aware, Asheville got a funding stream for CDBG-DR really within the city limits. With regards to our funding stream, we're looking at for the unincorporated area and our other municipalities, it's that state action plan, and that's where that funding is coming in. With regard to that, we had 2,151 applications in Buncombe County for the Renew NC program, and that was a mixture of repair, rehab, and reconstruction. Pretty much if a household had over $100,000 worth of damage, they would transition from repair to reconstruction. So that was the limit that our state partners put on there for moving from program to program. You can see the timelines here. Full reconstruction to 171 days is the goal they're shooting for. I've seen personally, we had a home rebuilt in our neighborhood, and they were, I want to say, under 100 days. We're seeing a much quicker turnaround time and below cost on that as well, which is good because they're able to do additional efforts through that process. But it is, once again, a process. They have to complete 7 steps before they get to the construction phase and the pre-screening phase. And a lot of the elements for this, it is HUD funding. There are LMI, low to moderate income requirements for the program as well. And they have 4 different priorities based on the HUD funding stream as well. So depending on where applicants are in the priority list, indicates kind of how they're lumping them together for next steps. We collectively in Buncombe County equate from the state perspective, 7,924 applications, roughly 30%, which is kind of what we would expect to see for all of the 39 counties. Our footprint's about 30% of the application pool for Renew NC. And this is very much the single family, not the multifamily pot of money, but the single family. With regards to the multifamily programs, just want to highlight this real quick. There are 3 different layers. You have small projects, which is for rental units 1 to 4 units. We have the medium projects, and then we also have the large projects. The main delineator between the medium and the large is LIHTC funding. Large projects are going through the LIHTC program with the North Carolina Housing Foundation. Medium projects, it says up to 50, but it can be over 50 if they don't qualify for LIHTC. But there is quite a bit of funding, and the window is wide on those projects, 500,000 to 15 million. And it is applicants, and you can see some of the key elements. It's mainly for HUD mid areas. We, of course, qualify for that here in Buncombe County. Timing on these take time as well, though, and it's often in collaboration. 2 of the big projects, which are not Swannanoa, but for Buncombe County, is Ferry Avenue and Cox Avenue and Ferry Road are the 2 that we have currently in the pool for contingent on this process. And then this is, once again, the upcoming projects that are on the pipeline, which aren't available yet. This is the big one right here, is July 6th. Is our community infrastructure project. $54 million is what they're going to put out there for availability for the initial round. Of that $54 million, you can submit projects between $500,000 and $15 million. keep in mind, a lot of our communities with water infrastructure concerns will likely be looking at this pot of money as well. So it's infrastructure in general. We also have looking at the hazard mitigation grant activation project, which can either be under infrastructure or commercial district. That project is to fund the development of some of these parks we're discussing and evaluating how to do the greenways and go through funding streams. The HUD money is a good contender for providing that resource for building out those projects. And same thing, infrastructure will go through 2 rounds. The first round is going to be a quick turnaround time. It's open for 8 weeks, starting on July 6th. It meets all the same HUD requirements. We have to do 2 public comment periods. 2 public hearings and 1 public comment. So it'll be a quicker turnaround, but we'll still be meeting all of our HUD requirements going through the process. We also want to talk quickly about affordable housing services programs with emergency repair, rental assistance, sheltering, and homeownership. These programs are coordinated with our team at the county, and you can see the households that are impacted from this process, and then basically what is Helene households as well. So it sometimes is difficult to quantify between a household need and a Helene impact, but this is our best guess as far as which are in that category. So emergency repairs is just shy of 1.5 million and 164 total, 83 of those being Helene impacted structures. I don't believe we got a map. Actually, we may have one on the next slide.
I think you got one.
Yep, here we go. So we can see here, we have our municipalities listed, but you can kind of see from the dots where everything is for the different repair programs. So obviously we're scattered throughout the county, but often we have a lot of more rural, less in the municipal partnerships, and then you can see quite a bit in Swannanoa, and then of course Lester up in Barnersville as well, and the Candler area. Nate, anything else you want to add in regards to the emergency repair program?
Emergency repair is one of the most important programs. If you can fix a leaking roof, you can prevent a lot of other things because, as you all know, it becomes a chain reaction then. So emergency repairs is kind of the pinnacle program, in my opinion, for keeping someone in their house.
Yeah, this map represents 569 homes, so quite a bit of an impact from this effort.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Oh, yes.
Who's doing the repairs?
Okay, so we, through our community development is contained within the planning department. And what we do is we partner with different agencies. Some of the 2 biggest groups is usually MHO and Habitat for Humanity. There certainly could be others, but it is a process that we look at every year in terms of who we partner with.
But you're not going through the Archer Collaborative, you're going to some of those agencies that are within the collaborative.
I'm not
That's
familiar with
like
it.
all the housing repair that Habitat and MHO and all the other housing repair agencies are coordinating together. It's not going through that, it's going separately to the agencies.
We have an affordable housing committee, and every change we make every year, we work through that committee, and that's how that's decided. I can't give you right now, I'm not the subject matter expert, but if I had Matt Cable here, he could better articulate and explain exactly the nuances of that, how that works.
Yeah.
Where does the money come from for that?
There's county dollars that go into the affordable housing services program every fiscal year.
And you have that.
And then of course we have our affordable housing developments. The 2 in the Swannanoa area were not impacted by Helene, but we have several other projects. I want to say there were 16 LIHTC projects that were submitted. Like I said, the 2 that we've been working on from the county perspective was with Cox Avenue and Ferry Road. But Jasper and East Haven, the 2 in Swannanoa, once again, were not impacted. However, the sidewalk project will have added benefit for those projects as well. So one of the key things when we talk about that 2.25 miles of sidewalk going in with the CDBG-DR funding, that will incorporate better accessibility, safer travel, getting people off the roadways walking along Swannanoa.
And Kevin, there's one other one that's gonna be going on 70 closer to the East Asheville exit, that's gonna be LDG, and they did our development recently up in Weaverville, so they're getting ready, they got approved at the Board of Adjustment. Which was also the impetus for requesting that speed limit get lowered. Those areas of 55 do not need to be 55. I think we can all agree on that, so.
So the new one that you're speaking about, and also the one that the city that just went through city council, those both are in the area between Warren Wilson, to the west of Warren Wilson Road, where it's not being currently prioritized for sidewalks. Is that correct?
The one I just mentioned is right on 70. I just cannot pinpoint in my head exactly where
Forest Farm,
exactly.
Yeah,
It's in the sidewalk area.
No, it's not. There's two that are proposed on 71 by the developer that you're talking about, and one that that city council just approved that's further west on the other side of 70, possibly outside of our area. But both of those are west of Warren Wilson Road. And so if you're talking about sidewalks between Warren Wilson and Whitson, both of those would be not in that area.
That is correct, and there's also the hope that we could also eventually apply for and receive funding to sidewalk the entire 70 corridor.
Great.
It's like, before I retire, there's certain things I wanna do, and that's one of them. So
I will celebrate that with you when that happens.
And I think we will continue putting in for as many grant applications as we can as funding becomes available. We've got the opportunity now to apply for a lot of these programs that are only available to us because of Helene. So leveraging those as best we can. Shifting topic for a moment, I just wanted to highlight one thing that's adding value to the Swannanoa area as well, is a recent initiative that the county started with our Community Organizations Active in Disaster. This is another Helene recovery project. This is contributing to preparedness, collaboration, coordinating, really building a network of resources prior to another event. It could be an apartment fire, it could be another weather event, but we're doing the connectivity on our community organizations. This is independent of the long-term recovery group. It's in partnership. They've been a good partner discussing this process, but think of this group more response, short-term recovery, whereas our long-term recovery group is very much focused on addressing the unmet needs of our current community members that are recovering post-Helene. So being very thoughtful in the direction we're going through. But we had about 90 participants come over to the event here the other week. It was also the day the county building had to evacuate because of the fire alarm. So we did a very quick shift in facilities, and our neighbor was so gracious to allow us to go over there and hold the event. But it was a great opportunity. We're also leveraging technology. County Emergency Services is using the WebEOC platform for our incident management system, resource management system, to put these resources in that system. So we have accessibility to see who our points of contact are, primary and secondary, what resources, what services are available, so we can get timely response to our community members whenever that need arises in a short-term timeframe. Also building out a communications plan for those partnerships and identifying good ways that we can look at preparedness events in the future. I know Swannanoa had a wonderful one the other week, so we want to replicate that success throughout the community as well. And I'm gonna look at Tanya because I also know that the CERT team got $20,000 in funding in Swannanoa. That's something that we want to highlight for this group as well, that there are programs to reinforce and enhance preparedness and resources to provide training, that this COAC could be a partner in helping identify and support as well. And landslide mitigation. Primary focus I want to talk about is Grovemont. So Grovemont landslide was our first landslide project funded by our federal partners with FEMA for that architectural engineering, the A&E study. Grovemont landslide, that contract was approved in December of 2025. Work pretty much commenced immediately following that award. They have been working for the past 7 months on building out an assessment. We're getting some initial reports on what potential mitigation strategies would look like for the Grovemont. In addition to that, we have Garin Creek. Just is going to go to the Board of County Commissioners tomorrow night for the approval for the contract as well. And we have additional landslides in our multi-slide project. which does incorporate 2 additional landslides in the Swannanoa area. And this entire project, once we get to the contract phase, should be a 6 to 8 month window for full project completion. So we are seeing good turnaround time. Grovemont has a 10-month projected time frame, so we're actually ahead of schedule. That one should be completed for turnkey engineering development for any potential mitigation efforts by September. So we're looking to have that up and running and give us the identification of where there are possible mitigation efforts. Think less stabilization, more mitigation. And a lot of these landslides may not have a mitigation effort, but this federal funding is allowing us to do the assessment to identify what the current conditions are and provide us an opportunity to gain technical expertise on those. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
See if I'm looking at what may have triggered the landslides. How does development or no development interact with the environment to maybe trigger those or make them worse?
Yep.
Are they looking at that?
Yes. One of the scariest things ever, a lot of our trigger points for our landslides were logging roads. And logging roads from when a lot of the mountains were denuded and late 1800s, early 1900s. That was one of the findings, initial findings. Very scary.
Yeah, because they're still up there.
Yeah.
Is this gonna be published some kind of way in the end?
I mean, we have our debris flow pathways, which were the precursor to our steep slope and protected ridge overlays. And now we're gonna look a step further at debris flow pathways. Because some properties are completely covered by these pathways, we think it's gonna have to be an education campaign. And when people come, the first thing they often tell planners is they want a house near a babbling brook. And they want a view. And it's gonna have to be some real reality checking to remind folks that that babbling brook is your worst enemy, correct? So we're gonna do what we can and come see Nancy at the planning board. But we're gonna have to be very careful too that we don't do what's called a taking or a regulatory taking. And some people are more, less risk averse. Some can handle it, but we will make some tweaks to the overlays as they exist now.
Well, as you know, from me being at other planning board meetings, what really concerns me is, okay, so the person is less risk averse and they say, yeah, we'll put our house by that babbling brook. So what happens to the people who live down at the bottom of it?
That's a tough one.
Is there ever going to be any protection for people who live down at the bottom?
We're gonna try to do what we can within the confines of what the state says we can do. And that's the one thing about this state is we're a political subdivision and we have to be respectful of the enabling legislation they give us. I will tell you right now, the trend is we are less able to do some things sometimes. I will tell you where we've had a lot of good luck, you all. We just talked about the East Haven development. They got a lot of density through incentives, and that's incentives by good design. We do a lot better if we incentivize something rather than a hard regulation. So I think we're gonna focus a lot more on incentives. To your point.
You go ahead.
What kind of restrictions are being placed on the mitigation areas since they're publicly funded?
So we're not quite at that point yet. That's one of the key things right now is we're still learning as we're going. We are actually a pilot project for this effort. FEMA hasn't traditionally funded landslide assessments in public assistance. So we are kind of learning as we go with our FEMA partners. So we don't have full clarity yet on what next steps look like. That is to be developed. That is going to be the keynote there. I think one of the key things, kind of circling back to the earlier comments, is we got actually over $6 million from the federal government to do these A&E assessments for all these landslides. It's giving us an opportunity to learn more, invest in our geotechnical engineers, our local expertise and partners to actually identify what are causing these efforts, and then gives us better awareness on what next steps look like. I think a key point is, to the Grovemont slide, our landslide task force with FEMA and in partnership with the county team identified 9 slides, initiation zones from that landslide. when we did our initial bidding for bringing in a contractor to do the work. When the contractor was out there using LiDAR and their resources and their expertise, identified 18 initiation zones. And they were able to determine if roadways, blowouts, what were the causes of each of those. So in doing so, we're gaining the awareness on what causes there are, and then that awareness collectively between Grove Mine, Garen Creek, all the other slides, will get better understanding as far as where an effort needs to be placed on what next steps would be suitable, and of course communicating that up to our state partners and our federal partners as well.
RJ, I'll also say that we are blessed to have Jennifer Bauer,
Yeah.
Philip Prince,
Amazing
Dot
person.
Fletch and Landslide Consultants, because it's not just about geotechs, it's about geologists. And I'm thankful, grateful. I'm also concerned about a number of the landslide properties through the buyout program. One of the things that's being discussed at the state level, and it would apply to the state if it's passed, is some kind of like hold harmless liability issue for local governments, because no two slides are created equal. Some will self-heal, some are active. Some are so complex that they span 5-6 miles in length. Some are clean slides down to rock. You go up on the parkway now, there's a lot of new water features. This one, we didn't have much to benchmark on, other than I looked at a couple of coastal communities in California where like a neighborhood slid off, and that was just a neighborhood. And if you looked at the map on where the landslides are, they're literally everywhere. So to Kevin's point, this one's we could be a good case study in the future.
And certainly back to the funding aspect, as we're looking at all these projects, the 31 projects in the recovery plan, a lot of these efforts, almost all these efforts require funding. So we're constantly looking at different grant opportunities, trying to identify different resources and solutions. Speaking of projects that I know Nate's excited about, we're applying for BRIC grant funding for a project with the MSD. The North Carolina Department of Transportation is looking at a drainage project in Beacon Village with the BRIC funding at the state level as well. So trying to leverage these grant funding as best we can. FEMA BRIC is the building resilient infrastructure in communities. That is a grant that had formerly been removed from contention and is now back available to us. So trying to apply for it while we can and look at those possible funding streams. And we've already talked about this quite a bit, but really leveraging that HUD funding stream for the state action plan for commercial district revitalization and infrastructure. Once again, we've got 2 rounds of that coming through. We're currently in the open notice of funding opportunity for commercial district. The infrastructure opened on July 6th, 8-week timeframe, short window, but a lot of pre-screening projects are already out there. We're doing a lot of good efforts on getting our ducks in a row prior to that point in time. And then of course, as other funding comes available, we're looking at applying for that as well, whether it's on community foundations, philanthropic efforts, additional HUD or FEMA funding streams as well. And also reinforcing to our state partners whenever the governor's going to DC and to other efforts, even locally in state general assembly, we still need money, we still need efforts, we still need support. So we're focusing on our current funding streams, but we're also identifying the gaps so that we can share that with the appropriate partners to see where we can find additional resources as well. And I think I'm pretty close to the hour mark. A little bit better than my presentation at Warren Wilson this morning. I got through 16 of the 36 slides, so lots of questions.
I don't want to take up too much of your time. This is really been a question to me. With those HMGB acquisition tracks where you're actually buying the track, mortgages, were there tracks that are facing or could face mortgage or foreclosure because of lack of payment? And did that affect their buyout opportunity?
So the state has left it open. So if a property is foreclosed on, it would still be eligible. One of the caveats though, with the way the federal guidance is written on hazard mitigation grant program, it's HMA is the policy guide, hazard mitigation assistance, is that if a property changes hands post-disaster, the maximum award is what the price of that property change was. So case in point, if the bank takes over for foreclosure, there's only what they basically were recapturing for unpaid funds. If a property owner sells to another owner and that owner is in the house, they've determined that, you know what, we actually want to still participate in the program. If they bought it for 80% of market value, then 80% of market value is only what they're eligible to get. So there is still the possibility of participating, but the parameters do shift a little bit. But we have definitely worked with our partners and reminded the community members to see if they can work with their mortgage companies. You know, I know the state's been trying to coordinate and made a few phone calls as well to support that effort. With it being a state-driven program, a state-centric program, we support as best we can, but they're kind of the ones driving a lot of that programmatic element to it. So far, we have not heard of a foreclosure occur. Definitely have been some current award winners that are close to that point, but they fortunately have not come to that crossroads yet. Yeah, Carol.
I think I'm confusing myself, but can you clarify, like, the CDR money, I get it. The infrastructure money that you're talking about, is that HUD money too? Is that a different?
So it is. So housing and urban development is all of the community development block grants. So CDBG, overarching, is kind of a standing grant program. You'll sometimes have NR funding, which is neighborhood revitalization. So you've got NR funding, standard CDBG funding, but then also the DR funding, which is disaster recovery. The CDBG DR funding is what City of Asheville got for about $225 million. They have their own action plan for those efforts. Buncombe County, our municipal partners outside of the City of Asheville, are all falling under the umbrella for that HUD funding, which is 1.5 billion range at the state level. So the state of North Carolina developed the action plan with feedback from a lot of our community partners from the impacted counties. But that HUD funding incorporates a lot of different programs. So the Renew and See single family program, that multi-housing program, whether it's small units, the 1 to 4, the mid units, which is the 5 to 50, or that LIHTC program as well. All of that falls under that umbrella of HUD funding. But the two that we're actively applying for is CDR, Commercial District Revitalization, and infrastructure. So different focus areas. Obviously with CDR has to be within a commercial area. So we've got limitations on the footprint, but ultimately both programs being a HUD project, our HUD funding have to be within the low to moderate income windows or in a mid-county, which we would qualify for. But think of it outside of FEMA, HMGP, and the FEMA public assistance, that the big ticket funding stream is HUD.
Thanks.
And if you really want to get confusing, Department of Commerce, DCR, runs the CDR program.
Oh.
It's okay, Kevin, I think I'm confused enough, yeah.
Yeah, if we can end with a chuckle, I'll take that as a win. Any other questions? Thank you all very much. You.
Next we have Riverlink, who are going to give an update on the Middle Swannanoa River Restoration Project.
Thank you. Wow, Buncombe County is coordinating so much. It's really impressive. Yeah, no slides, and just a brief update. I'm Renee Fortner, Director of Programs at Riverlink. And since Helene, I think a lot of you know, I recognize a lot of faces here. Riverlink's been working in Swannanoa along what we call the Middle Swannanoa River. So it's that 7-mile stretch from just downstream of the Ingalls Distribution Center past Warren Wilson College, where Bull Creek enters the Swannanoa. We got funding from the Community Foundation of Western North Carolina to look at how much damage occurred along that stretch of river to the riverbanks and the adjacent floodplain areas, to get a sense of, you know, what it was going to cost and what resources would be needed to help address that damage. We worked with local engineering firm Wildlands Engineering on that assessment. They found through that over 40 acres of the vegetation along that stretch of river was scoured, was lost during the flooding. And they estimated between $10 and $13 million of damage to the riverbanks and the adjacent properties. So since that assessment, we've been doing a lot of landowner outreach in Swannanoa, looking for landowners that were willing to work with us, that needed our assistance. So far we've helped, I don't have the exact number, but probably 15 property owners in Swannanoa with small scale repairs. So these were properties that didn't need full-on engineering solutions. So provided them with free plantings and labor. We partnered with Warren Wilson students on quite a few of those projects. Right after we finished the damage assessment, we kind of expanded that effort to create a watershed action plan for Swannanoa. Because prior to Helene, the middle Swannanoa River was failing to meet state water quality standards, so it's on the list of impaired waterways. And so we worked with Wildlands and Fans and Warren Wilson over the course of several months to create a plan that would help address water quality issues in the river. We've submitted the plan to North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality for their approval. It's been informally approved. And so now projects in the middle Swannanoa watershed that address water quality issues will be eligible for EPA 319 grant funds. So with this plan, we'll be able to leverage a unique and new source of funding to help the river. Also part of the damage assessment, Wildlands looked at opportunities to create more flood resilience along the middle Swannanoa. One of the projects that came out of this study is, we're calling it the Woodman of the World project, but Riverlink just received funding through the North Carolina Flood Resiliency Program to acquire that piece of property, a little under 5 acres. I'm sure you all know it. It's just upstream of the Whitson Avenue Bridge. But we're gonna close on that property in the next couple of weeks. And with that funding, we're gonna be able to do a flood mitigation project on that site. So we're gonna do something that's called flood benching. We're gonna create a little terrace on the riverbank, but we're gonna be able to keep the vegetation that's there because that site fared pretty well as far as the trees that were on the site are still there post-Helene. So we're gonna create the flood bench just behind the mature trees. This is gonna give the river a little more room to spread out low down during flood events before it reaches, like, tops over onto higher ground. Also, as part of the project, we're gonna do some stormwater treatment. So we're gonna work with the old pond that used to be on the site to create probably like a rain garden or stormwater wetland. It's gonna capture runoff from Old 70 and filter it and before it reaches the Swannanoa River. There's a small stream that flows through the site we're gonna restore, and then eventually we're gonna work towards it becoming public green space for the community of Swannanoa. So we're hoping to close on the property in a couple of weeks, and then Wildlands Engineering's doing the design for the project. So that'll kick off and should be under construction late fall, early winter. And it'll be 2 months roughly before the project will be complete. So that's really exciting. We've been in conversation with some Buncombe County staff about continuing the flood benching on other properties along the Swannanoa to have a greater flood benefit downstream. We need a continuous flood bench on as many properties as we can get there. We've also applied for additional grant funding to do work on the stream that flows through Beacon Park. So working to restore that stream and to do some green stormwater infrastructure there. We've applied for grant funding to help the owner of the Asheville Florist property and the BP gas station in Swannanoa to stabilize the riverbank behind their businesses. Hoping to hear back on that this week. So yeah, doing a lot of work trying to secure as much funding and willing landowners as we can to kind of meet this moment of need along the middle Swannanoa River.
And they have a great sticker,
Oh yeah, I should have brought our stickers. Do it for the darter.
For sure.
The Swannanoa darter. Yeah. I may be forgetting something, but as a snapshot of what we've been up to. And yeah, questions?
This is fabulous, but so you said you were applying for funding to help Terry Dolan with
Okay, yeah.
the Swannanoa Flower Shop, and then you mentioned the gas station, is that the one down by Whitson or? which-
No, the BP adjacent to Terry Dorland's.
The BP, okay. I
Yeah,
missed
the
that.
subway.
Okay.
We applied for strap funding and we didn't get it in the first round, but they're meeting this week to vote on another round of funding. And they said there's a good chance that our projects will get funded.
Forest is at the end of that strip, right beside it, right?
Yeah.
Say that again?
She owns that whole shopping center, yeah, so.
Yeah, and I know of at least one other property owner along that stretch of 70 who is approved for strap. So kind of just trying to like piece it all together. I know some of those properties are in the buyout program as well. But yes,
Well, is there any word or update on, like, did Mtronics leak anything into the Swannanoa? I mean, is there any
the
word?
word is that they did not, that site fared very well,
Right.
which is fortunate. I mean, there was some damage along Beatree Creek as it flows through that property. But the areas of contamination held up. Yeah.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big issue. What was like the number one issue of the Swannanoa, just like sedimentation and runoff?
Yes.
Probably like sewer leaks.
Yeah, fecal coliform bacteria is an issue. Yep.
Yeah. And that's mostly probably like old septic tanks maybe that aren't being
Probably.
updated or anything.
Yeah, that's a lot of it.
Right.
Mountain True is getting ready to kick off a septic repair program with funding that they're getting from NCDEQ. And so we'll be working with them to do some direct outreach to areas around Swannanoa where there's known like failing septic systems to be able to get those property owners some financial assistance to upgrade those.
There have been a number of sites that were, E. coli was sourced from actually cattle in the creeks too. So there's quite a number of those that affected the Swannanoa.
Yeah, RJ's been doing a lot of testing for E. coli along Swannanoa.
I know we'd all talked about this. Is there any, like, do you think the Swannanoa, the French Broad, will ever have like BMPs or streamside management zones? I mean, I kind of find it interesting, like, you know, when I work in the eastern half of the state, a lot of like the Tara, Pamlico, Neuse, like a lot of those have, and a lot of their tributaries have like S&Z and BMPs. I'm just kind of surprised that like,
Yeah,
the Swannanoa and the French Broad don't.
those are driven largely by economics. Like, is it a drinking water source? Are there nutrient issues impacting like commercial fisheries? Then those watersheds tend to be the ones where they get regulatory requirements that are more restrictive, which the Swannanoa and the French Broad don't fit that
Hey, Renee.
criteria. Yeah,
One first step towards that is, you mentioned a couple of basins that have been very well studied. So the resiliency blueprint is part, like that baby step towards doing that.
Yeah.
We would love to have a studied watershed because, I mean, it all starts in the mountains anyway. So I think that's one way to look at it, is because what we need is better guidance on things like stream buffers, riparian buffers, and that's sort of been all over the place. But the ones you mentioned actually have some really good guidance on things like that.
Yeah, it's just interesting because like a lot of those run through, they're really rural, you know, like a lot of the fisheries are more or less until you hit the intercoastal waterways. But like as you go inland, I mean, they're not, I'm a fisherman, so they're not necessarily great fisheries until you get to like the intercoastal. But I think there's a lot of, you know, like the Carolina Mad Tom, I think is like
Right.
one way that they've got those protections, and then some like freshwater mussels, and maybe that could be like our end for,
Yeah.
you know, trying to get some Swannanoa or something like that. So I just always find it interesting that like the eastern half of the state, particularly East I-95, has a lot more stringent water protections than like even in Wake County or Mack County or Buncombe.
and those rivers drain directly to, you know, the waterway and those fisheries. But yes, I hear you. We would definitely benefit from that in our water. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, could you not make the argument that, like, you know, the French Broad eventually goes to, what is it, Dandridge Lake or Douglas? What's the lake in
Douglas
this?
Lake.
Yeah, don't they use that for a drinking source? And like Newport, probably Johnson City, probably maybe even Knoxville.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
They do. I used to live there.
So yeah, you can make the argument, you know, how could we pollute our
And it's
neighbors?
one of the cleaner lakes, and East Tennessee is known for some pretty nasty lakes that we would not touch.
Right.
So.
Great question.
I had a question about, you mentioned willing landowners. The question that comes up a lot just in conversations, want to know is, what about the unwilling landowners? And I know that we don't have as many levers or tools, but how do you address, you know, when we were talking about the site where the BP is, there was the site where the Energy Fuel Station was, right there by the Whitson Bridge, that sat vacant for years, untouched, with the phantom sign with the gas price lit up. It's now gone, but that site is still, and I know, Nate, you could speak to this more generally, not just Riverside properties, but there are properties that were impacted by Helene that have been sitting, you know, whether some are waiting for the buyouts, but there are others that were issue properties previous to Helene that are now even more issue properties. Now there's one on Beatree or Warrenville near where the Beatree Fork is. A lot of old trailers and campers washed up and in the past, it's been, hey, is there anything the community can do to make this property owner clean the property up? And I know that
Your point.
pretty significantly limited, but when it comes to the river banks or just general eyesore properties.
So we definitely need the Riverlinks of the world, and they will help us on all
Yeah.
and we need everything, EWP, all of it. But what we really need a lot of help with, we've actually had to approach the state, is with, when you have an event of this scale, it's the code enforcement that comes after the event. And there's a pretty sizable violation right now over by Beatree, where a lot of grading occurred. But you could literally, we could talk about 1,000 different scenarios of code enforcement right now.
Yeah.
The other thing that we had just had to do out of the gate that's turned into a code enforcement issue as well are not all of them, so don't get me wrong on this, but a lot of the temporary housing situations have turned into issues as well, whether it be burning trash or any number of things. A lot of partying going on, a lot of just sites where, oh, where did that pile of whatever come from? Or but yeah, it's so much that we've actually had to ask the state for some potential help.
And doesn't one of your CBDGDR grant applications speak to funding for code enforcement
Yes.
and site mitigation?
Yes, it does.
Kind of address that
Yeah.
concern, yeah.
But that we would still need permission from the property owner unless it's a violation.
Correct, that is correct.
Right.
So again, carrot and stick, maybe?
Right, and some of the, I know that like public health concern can become one lever, if I'm remembering correctly. You know, if somebody's got property that is getting rat infested or ways.
Mosquito vector,
Yeah, those sorts of things, but, and also just think of like organizations like Riverlink or others that, you know, can just offer help if people would be more prone to accept debris removal from nonprofits than having the government.
Yeah, and it's funny you should say that, because one of the common calls I get is people that have joined the private property debris removal. Some people want all the down trees off their property, others, interestingly enough, don't. And it's trying to find that balance of,
Real quick, Nate, just to highlight one element for the CDBG-DR, it is for a commercial district, so it can't be all of unincorporated county. It's very much in a commercial district area for that CDBG funding. So there may be additional funding in the future, but the focal point of that particular funding stream is commercial corridors. So just want to make sure we clarified on that front. It wouldn't be anything that's beyond commercial corridors.
so y'all remember the Raggedy Ann doll that had the hair that was the yarn? It's like we have a Raggedy Ann and everything is a string attached. Plus the strings of whatever.
Any other questions for Renee?
Yeah, Kels Riverlink has helped me on a site on my property, on but not at the river, but on a tributary. And one of the issues that I had on that site was, the damage wasn't that bad until the contractors for the Army Corps got there and jerking up plants that could have stayed in the ground, jerking them up by the roots. So until I put a stop to it. Anyway, along the Swannanoa, how much of the stripped out vegetation along the banks was due to the Army Corps cleaning up? And is there a way that in a future event, we can mitigate that?
So I had just, if Kevin wants to answer that, I had just brought that to Kevin's attention. Talking about future events, what we can do to mitigate it. And then if you know about percentage.
That's a good question. I don't know that we were able to really parse out like how much of that damage. Well, actually, when we did that initial study, the debris removal process had not really started along the Middle Swannanoa River. So that was scouring from the flood and all the debris and stuff that came with the floodwaters.
I know that on my property, and they did the same thing at Warren Wilson. They put limits on what their contractors could do, and they watched them. So I don't know if that can be anything. I mean, if we can make a plan now, or if there's another event, how are we going to manage? Because I know in other parts of Western North Carolina, like where the salamanders and different freshwater mussels and stuff, and they were running up and down, damaging their habitat and removing stuff from the stream banks that had been there prior to the storm, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there was definitely egregious removal of living plant material from stream banks as part of that process.
Yeah, I figured I'd walk around over here versus trying to like talk from behind everybody. So one of the key elements for the debris removal program, so Buncombe County participated with direct federal assistance. So it was basically a collaboration with FEMA and Army Corps of Engineers and their subcontractors. We were a collaborator and we had Army Corps representation, FEMA representation here, collaborating with the county. We have a lot of contractors, subcontractors, a lot of moving parts, just the scale of the debris operations with our right of way along the roadways, waterway, and then of course the private property debris removal. Sometimes the messaging didn't always, there would be changing, evolving guidance that would come out through the process. We worked with our FEMA partners, our Army Corps partners, so whenever anything was identified, that was communicated very quickly up to leadership. And that's why we would see some of those shifting and evolving environments. Whether it was direct federal assistance or if it was contracted through that FEMA public assistance funding stream that we had talked about earlier, they all have to, part of federal guidance or the public assistance policy guide is have a debris monitoring aspect. So every debris operation that is contracted, Army Corps or through local jurisdictions, local counties, requires not only the debris removal workers, but also debris monitoring. So if there were gaps in how that came together, definitely things that we've learned from lessons. There were so many moving parts, just the footprint for all of the debris operation. But we've heard similar things where additional vegetation that shouldn't have been removed may have been removed. But it's something I think that once it was identified, there was good communication. In the future, though, those lessons learned that we have captured through the process is one thing we can kind of keep on the forefront when we're working with the debris contractor, sharing that feedback that in previous disaster, our Tropical Storm Helene event, we had a number of vegetative debris concerns that were brought to our attention. And we want to make sure that we're communicating that on the front end so that they're making good communication to their contractors. And of course, when you've got that many moving parts, sometimes those things will occur. But I think communication will be a key element that we continue to capture those lessons learned.
I think too, one concern was the way the contractors were compensated by volume of material as opposed to like some other counties where the contracts, they were compensated based on like linear feet of debris removed for the in-waterway debris removal.
One of the, one of the particular issues on my property was that, they did not notify me ahead of time that they were coming on my property. They started tearing up stuff before I ever signed anything. And so, the neighbor had indicated they could go down through there without telling them that it wasn't her property. And I understand that, but there's maps. They were apparently not looking at any maps of who the landowners were. And that might be something to particularly point out to them, that you need to contact the landowner before you enter their property, and you need to look at the property maps to make sure you've got the right landowner.
It's a good point, and something we'll definitely capture as well. I know rights of entry forms were very applicable to waterway and to, of course, the private property debris programs. But if someone had bad information and were on the wrong parcel at the time, I can see how that could happen. So
But
that's something we can capture.
But there's a very accurate map of where the parcel lines are or where I live, and there, if they looked, they could have seen that they were on somebody else's parcel.
So just, we have Mountain True to do an update on their plan. And I'm sure Kevin would be more than willing to answer any more questions. Otherwise, want to email them to Savannah, Shannon. We can send them to Kevin and he can provide responses to us, but we do have some policies and actions that we want to review and the results of the last engagement phase. So if any really quick questions.
Yeah, it's just a quick comment, you know, I helped with like a lot of that recovery stuff too, and like a lot of those people that, not a lot, but I've run across quite a few that like, you get these random grading companies that bought this equipment and had never done that type of work a day in their life. And then now they're offering a service they have never, ever done before. And so maybe moving forward, these companies should be vetted a little bit about like, oh, did you go spend $2 million to do this? Have you ever done this before? Versus like, this is our specialty. And you've seen that quite a bit. And you could have had one of those people that were like, yeah, we've done grading for 20 years, but we went and bought this equipment. And now this is something that a service we provide that we've never done before. You know, and I just seen that quite a bit.
So that's all great feedback. And if you want to provide it in an email so we can let Kevin and Renee go and get onto Mountain True and get onto the policies and actions in the plan, I'm more than willing, and Shannon's more than willing to forward that information to Kevin, okay?
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
I'm Emily Coleman Wolf. I'm with the Appalachian Design Center, which is a program in Mountain True. I have seen many of you at a number of events in Swannanoa. I hope that you all received a report, the preliminary draft of the work in Swannanoa. If you did not, I will make sure it gets out to you. Apparently you didn't. I don't have anything to show right now, but I'll send it out to you afterwards. Essentially, we've been in Swannanoa doing quite a bit of community engagement over the last year and a half, and are willing and able to continue doing community engagement. We are sort of moving into the individual projects portion of the work, as well as any kind of collaboration, continuing collaboration with the small area plan group on community engagement and conversations around the downtown area. That was a lot of words. So what questions do you have, or do you want more information from me so you can ask questions?
Can you just do a preview of what projects you're moving
Sure.
on to implement?
Yes, so we have a couple of projects that we have done. So we did some drawings for the Swannanoa Resilience Hub. Those have not been enacted yet, but they are available if and when that project moves forward. We're currently working with Valley Hope Church on a site plan for them. We have helped start, we're taking a little bit of credit for the work that the emergency preparedness and Appalachian Voices and the CERT program and is moving forward, because that one came out of some of the conversations that we hosted. Another project that we are going to be working with the small area plan on is an engagement in the end of July, where they present a bunch of their research and ideas on what downtown could look like, and we do a conversation around what activities and community-led initiatives there are in that arena. There are 2 other projects that are out there that are just getting started. One is the street planting project that we're streetscaping project that we're figuring out how that's going to work. And then the last project that we're still sort of working on the details of is resilience hub initiatives for the Swannanoa Library build. The building itself has asked if we would help them figure out what additional components they need for Resilience Hub. And so we're looking at that project. Any other projects that people come forward with, we ask that you have a nonprofit or a community focus on your project. We're happy to work on property level or neighborhood level. And basically what we're doing is providing volunteer designers to bring forward creative solutions. There are a number of initiatives and needs that have still been outlined throughout this process. Not all of them have action plans yet. So some of basically the ones that are moving forward are the ones that have percolated to the top with a particular owner, either within the community who wants to see them move forward, or within a governmental entity, or in other arenas where they can move forward. So, more questions?
Can you say more about the meeting in July that you were saying was going to be about the downtown?
Yes, we are just moving forward, figuring out the planning for it. So it'd be the end of July, and it's basically there will be more information as we refine what that activity looks like.
So
Jillian, you want to say more?
Our intern Liz, who has been here through many of the meetings, one of the projects we tasked her with, and one of our other interns who has since gotten a full-time job, which you always want your intern to get full-time job, is looking at revitalization strategies and economic development strategies and what resources are available for downtown redevelopment and downtown economic development. So she has created a report. She's going to talk about it a tiny bit today, but we are partnering with Mountain True on July
28th, I believe.
July 28th. And Liz is going to present the report to those who are interested. We hope the property owners and the business owners in downtown come out, and she's going to talk to them about what her research found and what kind of resources are available for that redevelopment piece.
What are we defining as downtown?
So we are defining downtown as,
It's our walkable destination.
Yeah.
From this
So
planning
it's
process.
Beacon Village. Beacon, which actually isn't really Beacon Village, but that's the name.
It's Old Town
The
Swannanoa.
old downtown Swannanoa.
Downtown Swannanoa.
It is my point, but people are complaining about that, who lived here a long time. Just saying.
This has been a topic of conversation throughout the day today, and over the last couple of days, we've gone back and forth in the department talking about that very thing in the report. It's changing.
So asking our steering committee, is it downtown Swannanoa? Is it Old Town Swannanoa?
Town center.
Town center.
Downtown.
Downtown Swannanoa, okay.
Time Swannanoa residents whose parents owned or grandparents owned businesses in the old downtown don't like the fact that it's being called Beacon Village, because that was a residential
That's
area.
the
It was
residential.
downtown Swannanoa. So there is an issue there, I think, as to what it's gonna be called. Anecdotally, everybody's calling it Beacon Village now, but it never was before.
There's the upper village, there's the lower village. And
It's residential,
Downtown.
residential housing in the downtown, but they're referring to businesses that are coming into that area as being in Beacon Village. So they're referring to that area as Beacon Village, the commercial area.
We are calling that downtown.
Well, yeah, so we'll see who wins. It's like, you know, CDs.
For the
and
purpose of the
credits, you know,
report,
whatever.
we're not
Yeah.
designating anything, it's just for the purposes of research and just for the purposes of the report. We had to pick something, and we really have just been debating it. It's definitely not a designation, it's official.
That's where it's gonna be.
That's where it'll all be
That's where it's gonna
debated
be
and
hashed
then the
out.
decision will be made, yeah.
That's the official forum. All right.
So for that event, we're gonna have Liz give a presentation on all the research they did, she did, and there's a number of initiatives that are available. So we'll create an excerpt, so ADC will create an exercise that allows the community to have ownership of what those initiatives are, which ones are important, how they can own them and move them forward, and then any that are highlighted, ADC can continue to provide support on.
Any other questions?
So just fleshing this thing out about the downtown. So that means that you would be focusing on trying to get business owners in that area as opposed to the US 70 businesses, or what role would the US 70 businesses play in what we're calling downtown?
Well, there's a piece of the 70 frontage and the walkable destination center that would be included in that study area. And certainly, I mean, I would welcome all the business community.
We are not saying just the business owners. or the
Right.
Property owners in downtown.
Any interested parties.
Any interested parties, yeah.
And part of the reason we don't have full answers is that we are working through the content and creating it based on, input. And so take into account that we should make sure to include residents as well as business owners, as well as interested parties along that whole area. So I will make sure you get a copy of the draft report. There is time to give feedback on it. So if you, I'll send it to Shannon. She can send it out to you all. You can take your time looking at it. If you have comments or questions, you can feel free to email me directly. We don't actually have a deadline on when we need to issue the final report, but I would like to make sure I get feedback from any of you who want to provide it. Thank you. Thank you.
Any questions before it leaves? No. Do we want to take a 5-minute break? You all look like you're a little, there was a lot of information, so.
And that was the end of our presentations today, so the rest of the meeting we can just work on getting it done.
We're not gonna If everyone would just stop eating for 1 second, Beth informed us that there was another pedestrian fatality on Swannanoa. And she thought it would be nice if we just had a moment of silence and we all just thought about that life lost and just reflected on it. Beth, do you want to say anything else?
I could read his name if you want.
Is that the man that got hit next to the debtor quarters?
1 week ago tonight, no, it was right around the Shell station, just past the Shell station.
Oh, okay.
He was 71. I have his name up here. I think it's a Saeed, first name. Yeah, just a second.
I have it.
You have it? You want to read it?
Saeed Mohammed Kushnaud.
So if we could just all have a moment of silence for Saeed and think about his family, and then we can continue on. Great, thank you, everybody. We'll get back to policy action and poll results, but we want Nate here while we go over policy and actions. After the marathon meetings we had, where we went through all those policies and actions, we gave people who weren't there a chance to provide some input and provide some requested changes. So we're gonna go over those one by one. And if you have any questions for management, you can bother Nate. We have him for another half an hour. In general, we provided the community in the last engagement phase with general policy directions. We did provide them the opportunity to directly comment on policies and actions, but it's a big lift to get the community to read through 100. How many is it? It's over 100 policies and actions. So the general consensus, if you look at the results, is
Look on the second page of this multi-page PDF.
there was, in general, the public supported the direction of our policies and actions for each of the different categories. So then the next sheet you have, or the next sheet we're gonna look at, so Nate can leave at 5:30, is the policies and actions themselves. And we have put in some comments, so we're gonna be looking at those comments. Some of them are from specific steering committee members, requesting language changes or having concerns about some of those policies and actions. So we will just go through those real quick. And then we'll go over map changes. Shannon will do a deeper dive into what the community said and proposed map changes that we need you to look at. But we're gonna work on policies and actions. Remember consensus. We're getting to a place of we can live with it. It might not be exactly what you want. It might be, but it should be a place where you can live with it. So if you remember our system, this means you're good with it. This means you think it's the most awful thing in the world. This means you want to discuss it, but we're trying to get everyone to that. I can live with it, okay? I know you guys are so excited that this sits on my head.
At least I didn't have a kajillion.
Huh?
At least I didn't have a kajillion comments. I didn't realize that we would have to touch on every single one.
So the first action that Kit raised some concern about is action 1.34 on page 3. require new developments within special flood hazard area, landslide areas, steep slope protected ridge overlays, and high hazard wildlife areas to include emergency evacuation information in their recorded governing mechanism. This mechanism must be recorded prior to obtaining any building. And Kit had concerns that this would slow down the development process. So does anyone have any comments about that one? From the staff's perspective, we already require draft road maintenance agreements for subdivisions, and we require that prior to the plat being recorded. So it would be a similar system to that. We'd probably as part of the master plan, site plan permit for large projects, require them to show that they had recorded some sort of emergency evacuation information.
If it's helpful to the group, emergency action plan is basically a template. We already require it in the special flood hazard area because you're required to do that already. It's a fairly straightforward thing to do. And it could be very low in terms of being burdensome because we would simply model it based on that template we already have, if that helps you all.
That was gonna be my question, if that was something that could be templated and handled, streamlined.
Does it require engineering?
No, No, it really is, it's be aware based on the type of business that you have or what type of people you're housing there. One of the most important type of land uses that utilizes them in the special flood hazard area are RVs and campgrounds for obvious reasons. So other businesses that need to think about that are businesses that have a lot of outdoor storage. Sheds come to mind, things of that nature. But also when it comes to housing humans permanently, what Jillian just mentioned is ultra critical. It's all about, do you have a good access that's gonna not be overtopped or one thing to think about too is that the good news is we don't have a lot of our overlays, we don't have a lot of density rich developments, but you do have a lot of single family subdivisions. So you might want to think about what your entrance arrangement looks like, because as we know up on 9, that became a critical problem.
I'm thinking more in terms of landslide areas, not those flood areas where one access may be the only access they have. Having a plan to alternate.
Yeah, I see that a lot with, I'm sorry.
Information is available. For viewing this, you don't have to hire someone.
That's correct.
Okay.
What were you saying?
I was just saying, I see that a lot with these high elevation housing communities where there's literally one road in and out, and it's not big enough for a fire truck. You might get a Type 6 engine up there, which is basically just an F-450 with a 100-gallon tank on the back, but that's not enough to fight a structure fire. It's really bad.
So Kit, are you okay with that one?
I live with that.
To your point, we had a development approved in the Board of Adjustment in the Broad River Fire Department, along with the fire marshal, actually required them to do some on-site tank storage for water. Exactly to that point.
So the next one, Kit mentioned is she proposed action 1.5.2, which is 4. Not to create a river corridor district, prefer to rely on the existing floodplains and not increase development regulations in flood hazard areas. And this is action 1.5.2, designate a river corridor overlay or river corridor zoning district in the Buncombe County zoning ordinance to reduce flood risk to lives and property, increase flood storage capacity, improve water quality, and protect the environment, limit allowed uses, and increase development standards within this overlay district. And this is corresponding to the river corridor on the land use plan map, the proposed land use plan map.
This is the blue districts on the third page of the section, if you wanted to look at that again.
We would probably model it on our steep slope, high elevation and protected ridge overlays, which do include incentivization for clustering, for staying out of areas of high hazard. They do, and it does not disallow development. It's just really best practices regarding building in those areas. And we would approach this river corridor either overlay or zoning district the same way. So you could still do, if you want to think about the commercial district, commercial development along 70, you could still do commercial development, but we might limit the scale, we might limit the type of uses that could go in that river corridor. We might incentivize staying out of the 500-year floodplain or the 100-year floodplain. We might incentivize building more resiliently, so those sort of things.
I was just having this conversation with my wife in the real estate space because we were talking about the contrast between the FEMA flood maps and the First Street's flood factor.
Irrigation analysis.
With the only concern I have with relying on FEMA flood maps solely would be that they're backward looking, inherently backward looking. They're drawn from events that have already happened, and we're living in a world where we have data-driven projections now, things like flood factor for what is the future, portend for these areas, because that may be a little bit different profile than what the FEMA maps are going to show.
What I can tell this group as one of your floodplain managers are a couple things. One is what I think might help this proposal here is the comprehensive plan already stated that we would join the community rating system. Community rating system is a voluntary program. We're already members of the National Flood Insurance Program, but joining this system allows us to adopt higher standards in exchange for lower premiums, insurance rates for policyholders in Buncombe County. So what we can do, and there's a menu of things that you can choose from. Okay, so anything we do from here on out, we will be working towards that goal. To Matt's point, the problem with the National Flood Insurance Program is that it was devised many years ago, and it has not kept up with some of the changing events that we continue to experience. But what you can do as part of the community rating system is you can regulate the 500-year floodplain, or you can have any number of other higher standards that are going to add additional protections than just the baseline flood ordinance. And in this state, we follow the state model ordinance. There will be some very large changes in the next model ordinance, which leads me to probably another question you all have had. When are we getting new maps? So they're about 2 to 3 years out on that. What they're doing right now is called H&H analysis. That's called hydrologic and hydraulic analysis. So think how much water and how deep and how fast, or the velocity of water. We will see areas, as you all have seen, where the Swannanoa went from about a width of this to the width of this. It's going to be very interesting to see what these maps look like. There has been improved conveyance in some areas. There's been restricted conveyance in some areas. I do anticipate as well that we're going to see a lot more full detail study areas, meaning a defined floodway. We have a lot of areas as you get into the farther reaches that become limited detail, which is actually more expensive for you to develop as well, because you have to hire someone that does what's called an interpolation analysis to demonstrate what the non-encroachment area is. Think of that as the floodway itself.
So this specifically is about creating a zoning overlay.
Understood.
Similar to steep slope, high elevation and protected ridges. So is there any support for not having that? That's what Kit is saying, right?
Overall, we've got a lot. I mean, how many pages of additional policies? And this is one of the areas, and yes, I understand there are going to be certain regulations that make sense. And I guess I'm asking, is there a priority order for these? Which ones are most important? Are we thinking about a measured way of presenting these to the county commission who has to implement, correct? So that we don't have unintended consequences. We've talked often about wanting to maintain controls over the cost. We know we have a deficit of housing in this community. There are very few places that we can continue to build. Not that I want to build on steep slopes either. I'm just saying it feels like if there's a way that we could present a priority for those things that we think are the most important aspects to be incorporated.
So we are internally doing that. An example is with the flood ordinance, how we're spacing out that flood ordinance when we're gonna join the community rating system. So we are doing that internally with implementation, but what this action is saying is designating either an overlay or a zoning district within that area as shown on the map for additional regulations for resilience.
And while in concept, that sounds great, but when you create additional overlays, I've witnessed it in the city of Asheville. Well-meant overlay with well-meant overlay with well-meant overlay increases costs to the point where developers begin to feel like it's just easier to go someplace else. And maybe that's, I'm warning against that because we need places for people to live. We need new jobs. We need commercial development that can create jobs. So I don't wanna, I'm not an advocate for building on steep slopes. And I understand there are areas where we're going to need to put regulations in. I just think we need to be careful about unintended consequences overall.
Go ahead.
I know Dee Dee has her hand up too. Want to go? I'll just say, like, we also had concerns about this one and how it would affect housing. And I wanna say first that like my comments in this document and tonight are out of a community process where I met with a group of 8 community leaders who have done disaster case management and housing navigation for the past 20 months. We looked at the policies. We had 3 meetings about it, and in between the county answered our questions about the things that we had concerns about and questions, and then we took it back to the group. So sometimes if I say we, I'm talking about that group of leaders that met through Swannanoa communities together. So we were concerned about the impact on housing, and Jillian shared with us that there are about 1,000 existing residential structures that would fall in this zone, and also that housing would still be an allowed use in this zone. And then we worked through like some of the questions that we had about how it would affect housing and affordability. And we had unanimous consent among all the community leaders that I met with to support it, mostly because of community safety and individual safety, and not doing whatever we can to reduce the risk to community members from future disasters based on the risk assessment that we all looked at together as a steering committee that you all shared with us. And so to us, it's a high priority because we know Swannanoa is at risk for future disasters, and that's worth balancing increased costs and putting affordable housing in places where that would be outside of this overlay.
How different, geographically speaking, do we expect an overlay like this to be from the newly drawn FEMA flood maps?
This one's gonna take some time, and it is impactful. Anytime you do an overlay, overlays can be very tricky, and one of the things that I like to do, or that we like to really do, is try to do a few things really well. and try to keep it as simple as straightforward as possible. We only have 3 overlays in the county. Other than the protected watershed, we had the Blue Ridge Parkway, the protected ridge, and the steep slope, and those took quite a bit of time to flesh out.
Is there a
So
sense in which, I mean, we say an overlay, but it's like within the overlay, how it's defined, not just geographically, but in terms of what the content of it is, in terms of restrictions.
because it's also gonna
Can it
include
be- Is there a dial from your, from a planning perspective, it says,
So
well, this is gonna be a
here's a
lightly
dial.
regulated overlay or a heavily regulated overlay?
And when we draft the actual regulations, we go to our local engineers and builder, we talk to them about it. We go to our subject matter experts and talk to them about it. We go to any stakeholders and talk to them about it. And the planning board, because that is their job, usually hashes it out and it starts with a staff draft. So after all those things has happened, after we internally have drafted something, and then we've talked to stakeholders, and then we've talked to experts, it goes to the planning board looks at it, and they discuss it, and they make changes. In the case of steep slope, high elevation, and protected ridge, they want to talk to some experts. So they might talk to some experts, and once they get to a place where they're comfortable with it, it's not until that point that they vote on it and it goes to the commissioners. So it's a very long process with a lot of feedback loops to what actually
So is it,
the ordinance
is it
is.
fair to say, or they're actually kind of two different topics to discuss here, the question of yes or no on an overlay, but then the bigger question of what will the overlay then entail? Because I would tend to speak in favor of the overlay from the standpoint of local control, rather than relying on what FEMA is gonna give us from a level higher up, say, we know our community, we're gonna take that data, but we're also gonna incorporate our own data, our own knowledge of the area. We're gonna define geographically the area that we wanna be concerned about, and then we're gonna have the discussion, which I share the concern about not overcomplicating things for builders and developers, but that's the discussion we have after we know what the geographic boundaries of that. And is it a lightly regulated overlay, or is it more heavily regulated?
I think it's 3 buckets. I think
Okay.
it's defining the geography. I think it's defining what the incentives will be for.
I love the word incentives.
Yes. So I want you to think of one program that's been a success for Buncombe County in achieving affordable housing and really good quality design. That's our community-oriented development program. So when I think of something like this, I think of East Haven getting all that extra density, providing affordable housing, and providing not just vanilla boxes, but a place to safely get on the bus. That's how we got our first crosswalk across 70, which I was told, don't ever ask, it can't be done. It got done. So that's kind of where our heads are always at in the county planning department, is how do we incentivize rather than do a hard requirement towards getting
And
this.
we have never, as a department, gone to the most stringent of the stringent or gone to the most complicated of the complicated. All our ordinance have been, okay, let's look at what we can do, how it affects development. We'll see if it works, or we will see if any problems arise. The steep slope, so the hillside development regulations and the subdivision ordinance have gone through 7 versions. And they were tweaked based on what development we saw on the ground, what we needed to address. So we would approach this one the same way. And we would approach it like we approach steep slope, high elevation, and protected ridge, which before it even got to planning board, staff spent, I wanna say, a year talking to experts and talking to developers and talking to engineers about best practices for development in those high hazard
I
areas.
appreciate hearing that. That makes a whole lot of difference because, I mean, when we do a poll with the community, lots of surveys get done and they're to everybody and their brother with lots of opinions, but sometimes not as many, no understanding of the actual development process. So it's important to me that we're thinking about that development process as well, because we need it to be thoughtful and influenced by people who are using that process on a regular basis and really understand it.
So are you okay with the wording?
Yes, I'm okay.
Okay.
Do we have any examples in other municipalities where a similar type of river overlays been put on in addition to their FEMA?
So that is another thing we do when we're drafting the ordinance, is we look at best practices around the country. And then we bring it back to North Carolina and we look at best practices in North Carolina. And I don't know if we've done that yet with the river corridor.
I have not.
That's a tricky one too, because a lot of communities will wanna go to something that's like form-based, and we're not that, we're kind of unique, so what we have to like dial it in now locally on top of everything else.
Okay, so page 5, action 2.11, identify changes to the stormwater management ordinance to increase storm system requirements and storm capacity levels for development within high hazard areas, such as nature-based solutions like rain gardens, retention ponds, and open space. And Kit proposes to incentivize rather than require higher stormwater requirements, concerned about making high hazard properties undevelopable through strict regulations. So just a note why it says identify and it doesn't say do this now is we have to figure out what we can do to the stormwater ordinance or what we can incentivize in the stormwater ordinance based on the very strict state enabling legislation. This is so important to the department and to the commissioners that there is funding in the this budget, well, next budget year, sorry. Next budget year to get some outside help, some consulting help with drafting any revisions to our stormwater ordinance.
So years ago, when the stormwater ordinance was drafted, it was written in a way that is just not, it's not working. It was written during a time where not as much development was occurring out in the county. Well, obviously, almost all the development's occurring out in the county now. It also was written, the model ordinance sent up from the state is written for the Piedmont and the East Coast. And we need a mountain ordinance. So we do have monies in the budget that were approved recently to basically right-size our stormwater ordinance and give us a mountain-based stormwater ordinance. So this needs to align with that process.
That good? Okay.
However, I want all these explanations made to county commissioners too, as they're making decisions. That context is really important.
Right.
So page 5, action 2.2.1, create zone, and this is from Kit, create zoning and subdivision ordinance development standards for
By the
new.
way, this is not just me. This is from conversations that I've had with architects and engineers and landscape architects and others. This is not me.
Okay. Kit and Company.
Kit and Company.
New and replacement private culverts and bridges in major or minor subdivisions and in large developments. That is what she is requesting be added to ensure that they are adequately designed to withstand high intensity flooding events and to accommodate emergency vehicle weights. Staff's fine with that one. That was the intention, is for those, not for, you see lots of individual property owners with individual bridges. The intention of this was for major, larger developments. Do we have any problems with that change? Yeah, thumbs up, down, sideways? Everybody good with that change? Okay. So page 7, action 1.1.2, Kit and Company Proposes delete the word requiring and leave it as an incentive. Evaluate requiring or incentivizing trees and native riparian planting when vegetation is removed within riparian buffer.
It should absolutely happen, but I do like incentives and stuff.
Does evaluate not suggest that the decision would be made later as to whether to require or incentivize?
Yeah.
So-
Needs evaluating, and again, this goes back to riparian buffers and what we can do with riparian buffers. And making sure that we are within that state enabling legislation. So that's the evaluate part, but it's also, again, that discussion with our development community, our engineers, our subject matter experts, our stakeholders about how it affects. Every time we tweak a development regulation, we have a discussion with our development community about what that does for cost or what it will do, how big an effect it will have on them when they're developing a site.
What I'm hearing is a lot, where we're discussing all this stuff, is a lot of information about how it affects development. But somewhere in this process, we need to look at how it affects the water, how it affects the river, how it affects streams. All the water that comes out of these mountains here goes to the French Broad, it goes to the Tennessee, and it goes all the way up through Ohio, back and around, and lots of those places are using that water for their drinking water. If we're keeping.
So that would be part of the stakeholders. We talk to NCDQ, we might talk to Riverlink, we talk to our experts within our department.
One of the most important the most important requirement for life on this planet after oxygen is water. And you know that across this country and across the globe, and even in this country, there's beginning to be vast shortages of water. And if we let the precious resource that we have here in the mountains get wasted or contaminated with silt, then we're not doing our job.
So Dee Dee obviously supports it as is. Kit, are you okay with the language as is, or would you like to see propose a change?
I still prefer the word incentive. Which one are we on now?
So we are on page 7, action 1.1.2, evaluate requiring or incentivizing trees.
I believe enough in native plants I can get on that.
Okay.
You're saying evaluate, you're not saying you're
I'm not saying you
required
gotta do it.
You're just trying to evaluate whether you want.
The word evaluate.
And I might tweak it a little bit in terms of, it's basically, is it native versus non-native? In a lot of communities, I'm doing some studies on this for the Native Plant Society of North Carolina. Communities having ordinances about this, and typically it's a range, 50 to 70% native plantings, not saying 100% native plantings, but having some target. So not everything has to be native, but we're trying to incentivize going as much native as
Also,
you can.
you might wanna require not putting invasive species.
And
in.
not invasive, and that's the other thing, restricting invasives.
My son lives in Grand Junction, Colorado, where Russian olives are everywhere. They drink up all the water. Somebody decided it was a good idea to plant them because they're pretty, but they're a disaster. But the wildlife, we want to avoid that kind of thing.
So-
We're rebuilding our river.
One thing we missed that you see the change that was Kit and Company's suggestion, instead of problem, changing the problem to challenge. Just it's, just as words matter. And it's instead of more positive. So is everybody okay with that, changing everywhere you see problem to challenge? Yes. No one is saying no, so I'm gonna say, okay.
Less confident.
This one comes from, I'll say Beth and Company.
You can place Swannanoa communities together, because it's, yeah.
Swannanoa communities together. Action 1.1.1, prioritize text amendments to develop ordinances that protect naturally occurring affordable housing. And we're on
This is on
Page 10.
page 10.
Page 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This, they just wanted to add some examples of what that would look like. And so we included a list of examples of text amendments that we are currently looking at, but that it does not limit them just to those. So this may include, but it's not limited to, evaluating where manufactured homes can be placed, allowing multiple homes on a single lot, evaluating where manufactured home parks are allowed as a use by right, and increasing density in housing options, and incentivizing attached housing and ownership models that preserve affordability. So does anybody have a problem with that? No. Okay. So page 11. Action 1.2.2, explore creating a rehabilitation grant program for existing homes with funding tied to long-term affordability requirements. Engage local affordability housing nonprofits that currently do repair work to assess their interest and ability to partner in delivering rehabilitation services through such a program. And Kit proposes to delete this action and leave it to the nonprofits already doing this type of work. The nonprofits are actually not doing this type of work.
You're not.
No. So this is, so our repair program is like my roof is leaking, right?
But Habitat does that.
Which Habitat does that.
What she's talking
This
about.
is a
not
grant
repair.
program.
Rehabilitation grant program would be similar to what Renew NC is doing, where it's a massive rebuild of the complete house.
And it's also a grant program, it's not,
Okay.
yeah.
This is looking at funding agreements.
So it would be similar to what the county's doing with the repair program.
Right.
It's like expanding and making it bigger.
I was thinking it was the same thing.
Okay.
Action 1.2.3 and action 1.2.4. This was a request from Swannanoa Communities Together to add as a lead partner or a partner for those two actions, for those two programs that already exist, nonprofits, local nonprofits, which we already partner
That
with
makes
nonprofits
sense.
a lot, so. Shannon, was this one?
Yeah, what is that about?
I think maybe did this come from your group, Beth?
I was just trying to look at that and figure that out. Let me look at our comment.
I'm sorry, there's no comment about where that came from.
What are we talking about?
I like it.
1.2.5. I think maybe we requested to add that.
I think
Yeah.
I think comment GP9 is meant to be with that,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So
So,
this is a new policy that we requested.
so this is a new action. It's supported by the comp plan. It's something staff has discussed already. Is everyone good with? That's new action, evaluate how to expedite to streamline the review process to incentivize newly constructed affordable housing, naturally occurring affordable housing, and missing middle housing such as townhomes, triplexes, quadruplexes.
So 1.2.4, that homeowner grant program
Yes.
she says existing program, right? So you're just saying continue it?
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't really
And
change.
provide support.
Okay. I would just suggest a little wording change to say continue protections through the homeowner grant program for long-term. Otherwise, it sounds like they're facing displacement pressure because of that program.
That's fine. Okay, Well, action 1.2.5. Everybody good with that? Okay, I'm gonna say everybody's. Page 12. And action 1.3.3. There was a request to, when we're considering tools for short-term rentals as allowed by state statutes. This is from Beth's group, including reevaluating the legality of short-term rental moratorium and exploring ways of restricting short-term rentals in Swannanoa.
I think there's legitimate concern there for Beacon Village, particularly with development of Beacon Park, that as houses turn over, you know, my daughter owns a house on Edwards Avenue. There's a house that just went on the market, I know that, and she put a post on social media and said, does any of my friends want to buy this before somebody buys it, turns it into an Airbnb? You know, because the concern is that the neighborhood, you know, and it's that challenge of, and I push back, it's people who are reflexively, you know, concerned about what the bike park's gonna bring, but it's a problem that we have to figure out, because if the park is gonna attract folks from outside the area for events, the demand for lodging is gonna increase. The incentives to purchase those mill houses and turn them into Airbnbs, you know, there's one already at the corner of Richmond and Edwards, which has been there a long time, clients of ours who bought that years ago, but there will be others. And the concern would be that we not let Beacon Village residential areas become villages of Airbnbs, like a beachfront community. We want it to, you know, we want these to be neighborhoods where people live. And I think, I don't think Casey would object to the idea that we want these to be neighborhoods, not just vacation rental
So,
communities.
and I am not making any promises.
Yeah.
The regulation of short-term rentals is a tricky beast.
Yeah.
But we haven't forgotten about it. We're still looking into it.
As you
and
said
we
before,
can-
that has to be county, anything that would be done would have to be countywide, it can't be
Yes.
community specific. And I understand that. The question I had, and I don't know whether this has come up, I mean, you know, could a community like the Lower Village, could the homeowners there just form an HOA of their own and privately restrict it?
That's a
Yes.
good idea. Sure.
Yes.
You know, or could individual homeowners do that on their own deed and
Yes.
say, when I sell, it can only go to a owner occupant, where it can be, you know.
They can do all those things.
Yeah, but of course you have to have unanimity, I guess, or can you sort of gerrymander it around people
I
who
know
don't want to join?
nothing about
you know?
forming homeowners associations, but those are tools. Those are private tools you can use to regulate short-term rentals. But the county has not forgotten about short-term rentals and is still thinking about how to regulate them. But I will warn you, there are probably a couple bills, there's always a couple bills in the state about short-term rentals and about the community's ability to regulate them.
I just first want to say thank you for hearing us and also for all the time you spent explaining the legal context to me because I know it is complex. But the reason I raised my hand was to say yes to everything you said, Matt, but I want to unlink it from the bike park because I think it's a bigger issue than that in our community. And I know that you've publicly spoken, Casey, about that's not your goal with bringing tourism to the old downtown and the Beacon neighborhood. But I live on a gravel road in Swannanoa that's nowhere near that, where the majority of the homes on my road are vacation rentals now. And I just visited a friend last week that lives in Grovemont, where 4 out of the 6 of the homes she can see from her house on her street are now vacation rentals. And it has nothing to do with the bike park. And so when we look at the number of units of housing we lost to Hurricane Helene, and we look at the shortage of affordable housing and really housing at every level we have for people who live in our community, this is the reason that we fought for it to be included, even though we know that the county will have to get creative and do some research, is because we see it as one of the biggest threats to changing the character of our community and affordability in Swannanoa. So I'm not trying to grandstand, but I wanted to specifically unlink it from the bike park and say
No, that's.
it's bigger
Good point.
Yeah.
and it's a major issue that we're seeing as we try to find affordable rentals for people who are displaced from the storm or people who just live in Swannanoa and need a place to live.
So does anyone have any issues with that proposal?
It is a complicated issue. I hear both sides of it all the time. And one of the things that I hear about is people balancing their own personal budgets by investing in real estate and using it in that way. But that being said, it's just a thorny issue, and therefore I don't want to be on either side of it.
So can you live with this?
Yeah, that wasn't
I do
me.
think, yeah. I mean,
What?
the key to it is what will the state allow local ordinances or local communities to do? Because, yeah, the balancing idea of, allowing homestays if the primary resident is present, so you don't have whole house rentals, then you don't have whole neighborhoods, but you do give a vehicle by which people can afford to live as home values go up.
I don't know if this will make you feel better or worse, but it's not, it has been
Exacerbated?
exacerbated in Swannanoa, but it is a problem all over the country. I just did an online conference with the National Planning Association and listened to how it's a problem in New Orleans. And it's a problem in a lot of communities where tourism is a driver, so.
I mean, the other thing, people have talked about taxation, or that there could be a change in the rules of taxation that would allow for a higher tax rate for people who aren't living in a house that's a primary, that's a primary location. There are other things that could be done that would, I guess people could still make the decision to make the investment if they want to, but there are consequences for that if it's not your primary home. And I think those are good ideas.
Get incentives and disincentives.
Right.
Moving forward, if we're okay with that one, action 1.4.2 on page 12, we just had for the host and information section for local nonprofits and community organizations to learn about community ownership models. This was a addition for management to initiate a conversation with Land of Sky Regional Council to see if they could host something like that. Community ownership models is a really great tool when you're talking about loss of affordable housing or keeping housing affordable. So we are going to try to get with Land of Sky and get some of the more successful organizations in the county that have used this type of model and try to host a forum for you guys so you can learn about that. Okay, page 13. This is action 3.1.2, partner with Swannanoa Farmers Market to provide logistical, promotional, and technical support to strengthen the farmers market and increase vendor participation and visitor awareness. KIT proposes deleting this action. ASAP does it, county support not needed. If you look at
Not that I don't want to support the Swannanoa Farmers Market, absolutely do, but I don't want to undermine the agricultural sustainable, Appalachian Sustainable Agriculture Program.
Are you getting all the support you need from ASAP, or would additional county support be additive?
We would love additional
Any
support that we could get. I mean, ASAP does a great job, but at the same time, they're also supporting all of the other markets as well. So if the county could help and provide additional support, that would be great.
You could say partner with the Swannanoa Farmers Market and ASAP to enhance logistical, promotional, and technical support if you want.
I like that.
So I'm gonna put nonprofits instead of ASAP.
Yeah.
Yeah, Swannanoa Farmers Market and profits or whatever to enhance. Just a motion takes.
So everybody okay with that additional language? Okay. Action 4.1.1 on page 14, and this is from Jared Penland. Explore programs that preserve, promote, and educate the public about the history of Swannanoa, specifically but not limited to the historic town center. He requested that we add Beacon Manufacturing Plant, Upper and Lower Beacon Village, Owen Park, and Grovemont. Partner with local historians, museums and collections and institutions. Anybody got a problem with adding the factory? I see one thumb, so I'm gonna assume that's all of it.
Would it be appropriate to include something there about like memorials to knowing losses? Because that is not specifically mentioned, but that's a thing that I've heard many times in the community about.
I think it's in the recovery plan
Okay.
and that might be the public art project in the Helene recovery plan.
Okay, so it shows up in here somewhere.
It shows up in the recovery plan. And then I think we called out the public art project as one of those actions to prioritize. That's why it says support the use of Swannanoa artists, the placement of art in the Swannanoa area when implementing the public art project.
And the public art project in the Helene recovery plan specifically talks about memorials.
Thing.
It's okay, I don't wanna slow us down.
Okay, I will double check.
Okay.
I probably should
Tanya
say,
says yeah.
sorry. Rather than saying Beacon Manufacturing Plant, it should probably say Beacon Manufacturing Company.
Okay.
That was the name of the company, not, it's more than a building.
Okay, page 15. Just policy 1.1. The management wanted to add at the end of that policy, support the completion and implementation of the county's pedestrian plan, tying those plans together. Action 1.1.1, update private road development standards to require traffic calming, safe pedestrian features, including sidewalks and crossing, universal design features such as ramps and new and redevelopment projects, and the building of sidewalks along state route frontage. Kit proposes not to require traffic calming on new private development roads if DOT is not adding them to the main road.
I just find it really, it's almost, I just think it's unfair to require somebody who could have a house, who is rebuilding a house or something, that has to do more than we're asking the general government to do in rebuilding infrastructure.
So this wouldn't be someone who is building a house. This would be, again, those large scale developments.
Again, I think it's unfair because it jacks up the cost. And if it's not, I mean, there've been sidewalks to nowhere that have been required that are an incredible expense. And it increases the cost for everybody, for leasing, for renting. I think it's unfair.
So as far as the sidewalks, I will say that is the only way that the county can require a sidewalk be built, is if during a development process, we require a sidewalk in front of them.
Even if there's no sidewalk connected to it?
Yes. And we don't have many tools in that toolbox. It's either when DOT is doing a major upgrade and they put in sidewalks, or it is that piecemeal sidewalks.
Add that on top of other things, and overall you end up with a more expensive project as a result.
I don't really like that as a blanket restriction, because I kind of agree with Kit. If the infrastructure is there on the main road and you're building a development connected to that main road, then it makes sense. Let's give the pedestrian infrastructure to join up with what exists. but we're also, Swannanoa is a semi-rural community, so you could have, you know, minor subdivisions developed that are intentionally built with gravel roads to maintain a rural feel.
Well, just to
And-
clarify, we're only
Yeah.
talking about major roads that have the sidewalks identified in the Swannanoa plans map. We're not talking about anything outside of those priority sidewalk areas.
It doesn't say that.
We could clarify it.
Yeah, I think that,
Um,
I think what gets proposed there makes sense as for, in terms of clarifying, if that's what if that agrees with what you're saying. And basically, this requirement wouldn't apply unless it's in an area where sidewalks are already being prioritized by the
That
county and
might be
DOT.
implied by the neighborhood center, walkable destination center.
So we can add in priority areas at the end of that, and we can do update private development road standards to incentivize those things. Because that's what it's looking at like when we are drafting out these regulations.
So change the word required to incentivize and then at the end put in priority sidewalk areas.
Does that work?
Would work. That works.
And sidewalk areas or priority pedestrian areas, how we do?
It'll either be sidewalk or pedestrian. We'd probably check with our transportation planners.
I mean, to me, there's a difference between a crosswalk and a sidewalk. I mean, crosswalks, if you're going across the road, are pretty important. Sidewalks, a little bit different if it's not connected to anything else.
I agree, yeah. It has to be fleshed out more and evaluated as to whether it's needed or called for in that particular development.
But the language that y'all are talking about adding would specify that it would cover like 70 and Old 70 and the areas that we've identified as really critical safety issues. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. And pedestrian priority areas.
Pedestrian, yeah, more than sidewalks, pedestrian, yeah.
Okay, so action 1.1.6, this is Beth's group. And she wanted to add language, prioritize sidewalk construction between Warren Wilson Road and Whitson Avenue and between Warren Wilson Road and Moffett Branch Road.
And the comment is a little bit not quite right, but the language in the that Jillian just read is what we were asking for. We're not asking for anything east of Whitson.
And those areas are already a priority on the map. Anybody have a problem with that?
I guess, is it a question of, you know, when we talk about the grants and funds available for these things, does that funding typically come? You know, is it a case of, well, if we prioritize everything, we're not prioritizing anything? Or if we're saying this stretch is a priority, it doesn't mean we're not concerned about this other stretch, it's just that this one would come first and that one would come second.
We really are not gonna have a lot of ability to make choices on the timing of when certain things
Yeah.
get built because we have to coordinate so much with DOT and funding opportunities, so I don't think it's bad to say what our priority areas are.
Okay.
But if a funding source comes in and we have the opportunity to jump on it,
We're
we're not gonna say, oh, that's not our highest priority sidewalk, never
Right.
mind, we're still gonna.
So as far as just as a way of making clear that ultimately we wanna see sidewalks from, you know, East Asheville to
Yeah,
the Whitson Bridge.
we could just say prioritize sidewalk construction on US 70 between Moffett Branch Road and Whitson Avenue. Rather than dividing.
Or from East Asheville.
Or from East
Yeah.
Asheville to
This
Whitson.
new
To
development
the
that's
Asheville
going in is
Valley,
actually, yeah.
So wait, what is the,
Basically, it's from where the sidewalks end in East Asheville.
Yeah.
So from East Asheville
Whitson.
to Whitson Avenue, so prioritize sidewalk construction on US 70 between East Asheville and Whitson Avenue.
That's a better, yeah.
Okay.
okay,
Is there anything in the plan for old US 70?
That's on the.
so she's wanting
It's
to
on the
just
map.
say what the priority is of that larger area. Right, you're wanting to say that of that larger area, this is a particularly higher priority.
Yes, and
Section.
it came because there had been there's this proposal now for using funds for Warren Wilson to Whitson. And we wanted to highlight that there's heavy pedestrian traffic and high-speed car traffic between Warren Wilson and Moffett Branch, which has now, because of the ACCM, become an even more heavy pedestrian traffic area.
Okay. Page 16, action 1.1.8, this is the staff edition. Evaluate increasing the number and quality of bus stops and prioritize covered bus shelters and accessible design and seating.
Accessible design and seating.
Yes. Anybody have any problem with that? Okay. Action 1.1.4, update development standards and create incentives to encourage high-density pedestrian-oriented development patterns within the neighborhood center and walkable destination center. And Kit proposes to change this action to focus on speeding up development process and reducing development costs by reducing regulations. So what exactly are you proposing, Kit? Or your group is proposing?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, inch deep and mile wide. They can talk specifically about what the needs are, but the idea would be not only to, I'm thoroughly supportive of encouraging higher density pedestrian oriented development patterns in those areas, but I'm also interested in encouraging processes, reducing regulation and processes that delay and cause higher costs or a disincentive to getting that kind of development done. If it becomes too much of a hassle, people have shown they will vote with their feet and go outside the lines.
So the create incentives part, that would be part of it. We are looking at our development uses by right and figuring out which ones we could maybe
I
take.
think the more we talk about speeding up the process or simplifying the process, that is those are good words in addition to incentives.
Okay.
And they could be the incentives. I mean, I'm not talking giving anybody cash. I'm talking about making it easier for them to get through the process, generally around time.
So do you?
I want to speak, because this is designating particular areas, you know, the neighborhood centers, the walkable destination center. I just want to argue, I want to hear what Kit's saying, but I also want to lean towards, this is where, these are areas where we might want to exercise somewhat higher standards, because these are the communities that are going to come to define Swannanoa as a place. And if our interest is in fast economical development, we're going to end up with box buildings that look like everywhere else. And I think and I'm not saying that that's what your group is intending, but I'm just saying that before we just say, let's emphasize speed and economy here, let's balance that against,
Well, I mean, for example, the speed could be early meetings to go through the process, trying to run things on parallel paths rather than things being linear in terms of there are ways that we could try and find ways to improve and make the process more efficient that are literally an incentive. If you make it easier for people to get through the process, that doesn't mean skirting rules. It doesn't mean making things too easy for them. It means making it maneuverable and predictable. And that's an incentive for people to come and invest in that community and do the type of development we want them to do.
That in itself is a kind of incentive. I mean, you know, we could say if you're gonna develop here, we got this special process for you.
That's what I'm saying, is beef up that language a little bit to indicate that that's a type of incentive they would find. that we're gonna make it, we're gonna work. I mean, it's kind of like I don't wanna get into opportunity zones, but the intention behind an opportunity zone is to find ways for government to work with developers to invest.
So what would be proposed language? Because that was the intention with incentives. We're already looking at it with some of our other development types. It's in the, and, you know, making stuff used by right as opposed to going to the board, looking at our development practices and where we can speed those up, our review practices and where we
Process incentives, efficiency incentives.
Is it permitting? Is that the right word?
Permitting, inspection,
including process incentives. Do you want to do
things
that?
that
What does the
take up
process
most time.
mean?
Permitting would be spelled out.
It might be a faster review turnaround.
Fast teams, like the city has done a fast team
Yeah.
for redevelopment.
Just, I think, yeah, processing incentives sounds like, it's unclear to me whether the incentive is for the developer or the incentive is the county.
I mean, it all ends up being related to the permitting.
Yeah,
So you
it's
could
permitting
say
speed and
including-
permitting review.
Update development standards and create incentives to encourage this. But you can add, looking at updating the permitting processes, expediting. Basically,
Expediting.
working to expedite and streamline.
So we want a such
permitting
as
process.
statement, such as X, Y.
Such as.
Expediting or
It talks about
streamlining.
expediting and or streamlining, streamline the permitting process and, plan reviews, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I'm thinking about.
yeah.
We
I think it just
included
add
that
it.
in the, earlier in the section about affordable housing, that affordable housing developments would get priority review. I think I just wanted to note that like not everything can have priority. And so you have to decide with the staff you have what gets prioritized.
So is everybody okay with that language?
Which language?
Go ahead and tell us, yeah, which language?
Well, I mean, I was just,
Such as streamlining permitting processes, plan reviews, and by right land use types.
I mean, there's a million examples of
Yes, there are.
incentives. So I,
Everybody good with that?
It's a such as.
Alright. Page 17, action 2.1.4, actively, this is regarding the Women's Correction Facility, affordable housing. Jared Quinlan wanted to add, ensure that property drainage and flood hazard reduction is incorporated into future redevelopment of the site. Everybody okay with that one? Yeah. Okay, we only have an hour left. I don't know, how many do we have?
We really want.
We only have one page, okay. Okay, page 18, challenge 1, future growth, Kit wanted to change it from exacerbate, thank you, to contribute to existing housing and transportation.
It's okay.
Yeah, everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Action. So this one, Kip proposes to delete this action as it duplicates action 4.1.1 above. I wasn't sure what she was referring
so
to.
she's referring to the one we discussed, explore programs that preserve, promote, and educate the public about the history of Swannanoa. That's where we added in the beacon manufacturing. So the question is that action pretty much the same thing as support community history and character through placemaking features of programs?
I think the difference is this is about like signage and historical markers. And the other one is about programs, right?
First one's about programs that actually preserve, promote, and educate history, and then
this one is about
one's
the placemaking.
is about placemaking. So they are very similar.
Combine them,
Can you combine?
combine them in the
Could
first.
combine them.
We wanna.
Which section though? So this one is in
Okay, so
economic
we will
development.
look at how to combine them, because we are running out of time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so staff will look how to combine them. Action to 1.1.2, advocate for wayfinding to prevent economic development in the walkable destinations center and other key areas of Swannanoa. Kit proposes to delete this action as the TDA funded the bike park and will handle all the wayfinding assignment. So the TDA funding is not attached to the bike park.
Pardon me?
The TDA funding, the TDA funding for the bike park doesn't include wayfinding. Right?
But they do wayfinding for the entire county.
They never did any wayfinding in Swannanoa though,
There-
except for.
But I think
I
they've
met
been
with the TDA.
sensitized.
Yes.
We've
Yeah,
been
it is.
meeting with them, she's.
So the TDA is updating the regional, there's multiple wayfinding programs for the TDA, you know. They're updating the regional wayfinding, and I think this was referring to some opportunities to do the other two programs that they have at the TDA. So they're not exactly the same.
So,
Without
yes.
getting into the weeds of really like explaining.
so my suggestion would be to leave that as.
Yeah.
And then 1.1.3, we'll look at those three actions that are really similar and see if.
Good.
All right, moving on, Shannon.
What do you mean? We still, what happened to our six?
Are we done?
No, we got more.
We got more?
Everybody's already tired. Do you really, do you really wanna have the time?
So action 1.2.3, this is the social district. Shannon made a suggestion, Beth would like this removed. One thing I will say, this would have to be led by the business community, it wouldn't be led by the county, so we got no skin in the game, so to speak. We did provide you with some information regarding social districts, that Liz put together and, if they have been successful or not, or what the research says about them. But we can either remove this entirely or, we've created what did we call it? Community ideas?
So the last page is community ideas. It could come out as an action since it's not something that the county would be doing. And we could put it in with the community ideas section if we wanted to keep it, but maybe soften, where it is a little bit. Or it could be removed entirely, stay in. What's the preference?
Yeah, I could see moving it to the community ideas. This document that you all put together is really helpful in sort of the pros and cons and where it's been tried other places. My sense of it is, as some sort of a member of the Swannanoa business community, is I'd like to see things like Beacon Park get established and deal with the lodging issues around that before we start exploring a social district on top of that, because it feels like we might be pouring a lot of stuff in at one time. And so I think that's a conversation the community could have, the business community should have. But like I said, the county's involvement in that is kind of limited. And so I think having it in there as a conversation starter, as a community topic makes sense.
Like that, no one's looked at this. Do we want to just talk about it for a minute?
We don't really have time.
Okay, I
Just-
could summarize it.
I have a
Okay,
question.
And I have a question here, so was this added in here because members of our business community have come to the county saying we'd like to explore a social
So this
district?
is a suggestion of a steering committee member.
Okay, so it should.
And it is a good economic development tool, but there seemed to be a lot of concern regarding it. And like I said, the county has no skin in the game. So if you guys just wanna remove it, we can just remove it.
Or what
I
Matt
did
did, like.
not suggest this, oh, by the way.
Yeah, it was not Kit.
Just want to point that out, but we've already got these established in other areas of the county. And there are, and the pros and cons can be discussed, but it is a tool. We want to give every new business being established in Swannanoa the best possible chance. I don't think we should do anything to provide a disincentive for considering it. I mean, and it would have to be brought up and acted upon. So I want the businesses that take the risk to open in Swannanoa to have the best possible chance to flourish. And social districts got completely politicized and blown out of proportion in Asheville. And I think that's the problem, is that there was just not enough conversation about what a social district was and does. They've got one in Weaverville.
So Liz did some research on them for us, if you wanna, after the meeting, take a look at that, but for now.
Can you make them in non-incorporated places?
That was my question for Liz is, can you give us an example of an unincorporated community that's not a town or a city that did one of these and what the consequences were there? Because towns and cities have different infrastructure to clean up vomit in the streets, for example, than we do in the county.
And to monitor it and deal with all of it.
So we can move forward this, how many people would support just removing?
Can we put it, the additional community ideas?
Well, let's just do it, just removing it. How many people would support just removing it?
Well, I would support removing it from the actions if we're gonna put it in the community ideas.
Does everybody agree with moving it to community ideas?
I don't
Put up
agree.
with that.
There's nothing, if you remove it from this and don't include it in community ideas, there is nothing in this that prevents or disincentivizes it happening if the business community brings it forward as an idea. There's nothing, I will say that, like, we didn't bring forward a suggestion saying prohibit it. And I'm willing to not bring that forward, but I don't see the reason to include it in the policies or the community ideas, because it did not come out of, if you look at all the community input about what people wanted in terms of economic development, this is not a thing that the community said that they wanted.
I thought this did come from somebody on this.
It came from a
too.
steering
Someone on
wheel.
this community, but it says support the business community in
Right.
exploring this. That leaves for people to kind of assume that the business community has raised this and wants it,
They did.
and they didn't. So for me, it's misleading the way it's worded. I agree that there's nothing in here that keeps the business community from raising this after this is adopted. I'm leaning towards taking it out completely.
We don't even have any sidewalks here.
So can we get a thumbs up to remove
Remove it?
thumbs down to keep it in?
Is everybody okay with removing it?
Yeah.
Alright, what can we get you to feel comfortable with that
Well, I
decision?
mean, it doesn't have to be 100% vote, right?
Well, it's
It's America.
consensus, so.
Just moving it to the
Yeah.
community ideas thing, but if we're gonna move it to the community ideas, I would request that it be worded differently so that it says that if this issue is, rises up,
If we
then
make it very
you would
clear.
support exploring it, but not you're gonna initiate it.
I think then, I don't know, I would have to take it back and see what our leadership council thinks about it, but our position was, we are willing to not explicitly say that we don't want it. If it's taken out and not listed as a priority for our community, because we didn't see it when we went back and looked at all the community input. We saw hardware stores, grocery stores, post office, housing. We did not see anyone saying that we
You
need.
missed the drinking in the streets
We
comments?
missed.
So
Can I-
consensus state,
I'll ask a question before we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The things that are listed in the other community ideas, where was this list generated from?
So this is a list of things that was brought up by the steering committee or requested that either does not exactly belong in a small area plan or does not have the support of county management.
So adding the social district concept to the additional community ideas, some of the things that are already listed here were also not brought forward in the public engagement by. Some of these
Correct.
were all
Yeah.
potentially, so.
But
this
they
would-
will go to for public engagement at the next phase.
So moving the social district to this would be in line with where these ideas were generated from. It is in line with where they were generated.
Yes.
Can I
Then I
suggest,
would say we put it there and
can I
let it have.
suggest
Yeah, let's.
that we move it to that, to the ideas and some language for that? Because I think if we say exploring whether the establishment of a social district, et cetera, will be beneficial,
So
that includes both sides, because the exploration might result in a yes and it might result in a no.
That's a good idea.
are we okay with that, Beth?
What the word is weather.
Are we
I
at?
can stand aside about it. I mean, I would question why we would include that instead of other. I hear that it's an economic development tool. There are other economic development tools that we're not explicitly mentioning in here. So, if the Destination Stewardship Council became a reality and that was really a specific thing for Swannanoa and not just a countywide Destination Stewardship Council, I think that this is one of several economic development tools that could be run through that community council that would say, we like this or we don't like this.
Do you have that language?
And I think putting this social district out to the community in Swannanoa is really dangerous.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's just a dangerous idea because I think people will vote for it. And then we have a bunch of drunks roaming around in the street. We already have enough meth heads and fentanyl and all sorts of other things roaming in the downtown area and in the village of the upper village and the lower district. That concerns me. Like, I'm just voicing my opinion as someone that lives in that neighborhood, so.
So we will revise the language and move it to the community ideas list. Does everybody agree with that? We have consensus.
I'm not sure, because they may have just convinced me.
Well-
What Beth and Dina just said, if one of the ideas is to create a destination stewardship council that would be specific to downtown Swannanoa, then this would be a discussion that could take place within that.
Yeah.
And,
That's not,
and
it's
if
not
we-
gonna impact anybody whether the county puts this action in though.
No.
We can take
Right.
this out and just forget about it and it won't make any difference if the business community decides they
Right,
wanna.
and that's why
advocate for it.
I'm hearing what Dina's saying. It's like if we put this into this list of ideas, it invites people to grab onto it when we don't have a body set up to give it proper
Yeah, we don't
consideration.
have like people saying that they want it.
Yeah.
That part.
Yes.
Okay,
let's
so do we
just-
have to take it out?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you convinced me.
Alright, can we see the thumbs though, just so there's thumbs up is taken out? Okay, that's the consensus.
What about you two?
I've said fine.
I mean, it's not a hill I'm gonna die on, but I am gonna make the point that we were singling out one idea. Where there are other ideas that are listed as other community ideas that did not come from community engagement.
Yes, that is very fair.
So some of the ideas on additional community ideas came from steering.
But I also think there is
This
an
is the
inherent
controversy.
misunderstanding of what a social district is. We're not talking about creating Bourbon Street in downtown
So
Swannanoa.
we are running out of time, literally and figuratively with this plan, so we gotta move on. So we are removing.
Go.
In 5 years, when we do an update, you can advocate to add it back in. Don't worry about that.
Sorry, we're not done talking about it yet. The next one is. So page 20.
Oh, yeah.
Action 4.1.1, revise the walkable destination.
So I just want to clarify that we did not advocate for excluding breweries, even though that's the language, but we were wondering if you could restrict the number.
You cannot
No more than
restrict, you can't restrict number of land use, either allow it or you don't.
So it's either exclude or
Well, there's
Allow them to
new
be-
ones. You can have size
Limitation.
limits, footprint areas. I mean, there's things related to the dimensional qualities of a development that maybe don't even have anything to do with whether or not it's a brewery, but that would be the closest to like limiting a type of land use without just prohibiting it.
Yeah.
So it'd be more about the form or the size.
We can drop this one. I think our goal is not to exclude breweries, like there are breweries in the Swannanoa Valley that have been amazing citizens, community citizens. And the goal was just to be careful of creating a brewery district because of similar concerns with the social district.
Page 22.
Page 21.
Support community partners in updating the Swannanoa Greenway feasibility study. Management asks that we remove specific references to particular organizations.
You love this.
I can live with that. Yeah.
Page 22, action 1.1.2, increase private road development and access standards in steep slope overlay districts, flood prone areas and landslide hazard areas to enhance resilience and reduce vulnerability. Kit proposes to lead this action to avoid increasing costs for developers, which would increase home costs. We are talking about very specific changes to standards within these high hazard areas to make those roads safer. Like requiring they use bigger culverts on crossings. So if there is a flood event, it's not so.
Yeah, and some of those roads, like I said earlier, they're like not even big enough to get a fire engine. So if your house burns down, other than ordering a helicopter to just dump water in your house, which would probably damage it more than the fire, how else could you get fire support up there?
Well, and another thing is, in Lytle Cove, there's two developments, one up on the steep, both of them are steep. One of them has very old roads, and during the Helene, those roads are completely obliterated. They had to replace all their culverts in a lot of their roads. And I think they got FEMA to pay for it. But on the other side, where they was much newer and the roads are wider, they still had to replace all the culverts in a lot of the roads. So, and they had to pay for that. So you're not saving these people any money by not putting the right culverts in to start with. You might as well put them in to start with. And then the people don't, or FEMA or whoever, I mean, the taxpayers paid for all the rest of it.
Kit is okay with it, so let's move on. And that is it. You guys saw the additional community ideas. These are things that got removed because they did not belong, or management felt they did not belong in the small area plan, or they were county-wide implementations and not.
Can I ask about that?
Yes.
The Destination Stewardship Council, it says that would have to be a countywide initiative. County management does not feel it's appropriate for a small area plan. Why does it have to be a countywide initiative?
Because we are a county.
I understand we're a county, but we're doing a Swannanoa plan. and
Correct.
Why couldn't we have a?
The idea
Destination
between
Stewardship
a
Council as
destination stewardship council is that you're addressing tourism as a whole in a community. Our community is Buncombe County.
Right, but I mean, you're doing a Swannanoa small area plan, so you're not doing a Buncombe County small area plan. This is a plan for Swannanoa, so why can't a Destination Stewardship Council, given everything that's gonna happen in Swannanoa and the growth and development that we're expecting to see, why could that not be part of our small area plan? I don't understand, is there some state law that says if you're gonna have a
No.
destination, we gotta have that?
It's just that the overall body is the county commission that makes any decisions related to it. You know
Well,
what, I
we did-
really do think that the TDA would welcome, Explore Asheville would welcome the opportunity to work with a committee that functioned in that very same way.
Yeah, because, you know, what I was gonna say is a Destination Stewardship Council can be set up, you know, the county can set it up, or the county can facilitate and help set it up and,
Or the-
and support it, and the community of, you know, all the different
So, or
stakeholders.
the
couldn't
community and
we
the
s-
TDA could
See,
say.
and the
Couldn't we
TDA
still
could totally
say-
do it, could totally work with a group from Swannanoa.
Couldn't we still say, I agree, that's a good idea, but couldn't we still say in the small area plan that the county will support the exploration and?
County
support of
management
the-
will not support the exploration.
Okay,
And we, can a little bit of definitional language be added to that bullet point, just so that when people read this, they kind of know what a stewardship council is?
yeah,
want
we
like a
could, let's give it a
definition?
different name.
Yeah, just,
Just call it something.
yeah, or call it something else.
There's like a pillar in Explore Asheville's set of principles about stewardship in terms of
Yeah,
improving
so maybe we
stewardship.
can-
To find some language that's similar to it,
Yeah,
it'll fit right with it.
all right, we'll,
Okay, so we have gotten through this, now, we are gonna go on to the results.
Gonna go to question 3, which is the sidewalk map. And one thing I'm gonna say is there was not broad consensus requesting changes for anything in the public engagement. The very few people who actually answered the question with a specific requested change mentioned, for the sidewalk and bike priority map, there was a request for a bike lane priority on Davidson Road to New Salem to provide an alternate connection. There was, that's number 1. Number 2 was a different way to get into the city of Asheville by avoiding US 70. And the feedback we got was for an Old Farm School Road connection. And the third one, which was the only one that had the closest thing to consensus, was Grovemont, the desire for more sidewalk options in Grovemont. There were no specific roads mentioned in any of the comments, but when staff looked at things like how could people get to Owen Pool, how could people walk to the school or from some other neighborhoods, the Marion Avenue was the most logical missing piece of that connection. So that is what we're showing on the map here as
That
potential
makes sense.
change.
is it already on Grove, it's already on Grovemont Avenue, right?
It is, yes.
And this is, we are just providing you with the data,
Mhm.
and like Shannon said, there is no consensus. So looking at these 3 things, does the steering committee as a body wanna propose to change the map to show any of those 3 things?
The Davidson, to New Salem, that is shown on the map, right?
That is this one. This map is showing
Showing
just the
proposed
additional
changes.
ones. Yeah.
Is there any reason not to just put bike lanes for all of New Salem?
You mean for the whole loop?
Yeah,
That could be something that you all
if you are
propose.
connecting US 70 to Tree, you know, if you're coming out from Tree towards 70,
It could
especially
be
if you're
the
heading
top
west, you're planning to head west on 70, you're gonna wanna take the right fork of New Salem rather than the left fork.
Okay.
And if
So is that a proposal, and do we all agree?
We're talking about instead of it going straight south, that it would come across Davidson and then turn right on,
basically include,
Salem.
well, just include New Salem.
just do the whole
Well,
thing.
Do the whole thing instead of just that.
And that's a bike priority.
Bike
And
priority.
Bike lane.
This is a question I have is, if it's a bike priority but not a sidewalk priority, and you have a road that people are both walking and biking on, like New Salem, like, can you use the same, can you use the bike infrastructure for people also to have a place to not get hit by a car if they're a pedestrian on New Salem? Like,
You're talking about
Probably not
multi-use
like-
path.
like, and can it be named multi-use, or does this cover it? I just don't know, because it's not.
I do think a bike lane helps with pedestrian
Right.
safety.
But a bike lane can be, and this is up to DOT typically, it can be as simple as a bike marking striped on the road. It
Yeah.
does not mean any specific type of design
Yeah.
or separation.
Right, so it's just clear even wider. It just means that they might put it straight down.
It means that if DOT were doing a resurfacing project and
Oh,
we
I
said we
know.
wanted
Yeah.
a bike lane there, they would look at it, and if the only option is striping, that's what we would get.
And even on
So-
just like like New Salem, which would be just a double yellow, they would still put some
Yeah, 'cause
sort of
there's no
stripe
room
on that.
to
but-
do
It's barely wide enough for us.
What this is saying is that all that we're saying in this map is this is the community's priorities for access. And then the future decision-making about design and feasibility would have to be conversations with DOT.
DOT, right?
Okay, I mean,
So what do we wanna do about number one? Do we wanna include the whole area around New Salem and Davidson, leave it off, knowing that wasn't much consensus, or do something different?
Can I ask a clarifying question? What you just said, this is just saying we would make it a priority, even though the road, we all know, is probably too narrow to achieve this.
What we are saying,
Be decided later
yes.
whether or not that could happen, but should we make it a does it deprioritize areas where it can be
Yeah,
achieved by making it a priority, very narrow road?
It could.
It could.
Then I
I think
think
that we shouldn't,
Okay, so no,
that's a no for me.
okay.
No,
I can live with that.
2, 3.
Unless anyone says anything, I'm just.
Okay. Dee Dee is no question?
Okay, number 2, add bike priority for Warren Wilson Road along Old Farm School Road to connect City of Asheville as an alternative to the US 70 Tunnel Road priority area.
And just not to make anything complicated, but DOT's, the state priority plans show Riceville Road all the way up and through into the city as one of their future priority sections.
Yeah.
So this would be a totally alternate version of that
I think,
as well.
as somebody who I don't do it anymore because it was too risky, but I have ridden a road bike on that route and on 70. And riding a road bike on 70 is hair-raisingly terrible. So I would be happy to see an alternative created for the hardcore cyclists who wanna take that route,
I
so.
think Old Farm School Road is more level.
There are parts of it that are.
So
As we work on the
Yes.
feasibility plan for the Swannanoa Greenway, it's possible that there are areas where we won't be able to go, such maybe not on Warren Wilson College. So that Old Farm School Road might turn out to be an alternative we need to look at for a greenway going east-west.
So do we wanna add that as a bike priority? Again, with the caveat that none of this was a consensus. We are just bringing you data from the engagement.
Meaning it might have just been one person's
Yes,
suggestion.
it
was
was
in fact one person.
I think it's-
But it's one person that rides that route every day already, so.
If there's already a plan to connect Riceville out of Asheville anyway,
That would be up
So-
Riceville Road.
That'd be a long,
but that's,
So,
yeah,
I think Farm School is better choice.
it's a lot shorter. It's
So do we wanna add that as a bike priority? Someone wanna make a proposal to do that? Or do we not, because we're not dealing with a lot of data?
doesn't have really have much traffic on it.
That's what.
Someone wanna propose a yes or no?
I'm in.
I think it should.
So we got two yeses.
3.
Everybody okay with it?
Yeah, I just don't know what it means in terms of does it deprioritize? If you start showing all these priorities,
That is
you know,
correct.
I think what we got the primary community feedback on were our priorities,
Yes.
as shown by lots of feedback that we got.
Right.
So to just start piecemeal let's
Make
add
the
that road,
different
that,
color.
it almost loses its impact as showing priorities.
Yeah.
Because it's got too much.
So we have,
Yeah, I want bikes, I want it everywhere,
but we don't have a critical mass of public input that says any of these things should be a priority.
Maybe we're
No, we
gonna, you have priority in purple, but you
No,
also have
she
bike lane in blue. This is
means-
blue.
Oh.
It's not purple.
Yeah,
We're just talking about the bike lane.
So this is adding a bike lane where we would not have had a blue line before.
A priority area.
Which
To advocate
doesn't mean a
for.
bike lane will never go there. It just means that it's not a priority of the community.
So if it's not priority, we'll still have a dashed blue line there.
It would not,
No,
if we don't add it.
Priority is in purple.
That's sidewalk.
Oh, sidewalk. This is good.
Bike lane.
You're right. Never mind.
Okay.
I just think you run the risk of diluting the.
So don't do any of them?
So thumbs up if you do not want to add it to the map.
Any of them,
Any of them?
Any of them?
Wait,
any of them.
Any,
okay.
any of what?
Any of the ones that are on the original priority list.
The three that were.
Because they are not consensus from the community. They are the random comments we got.
We haven't talked about the road mark sidewalk. We just grouping that in with this now. Number 3, do we want?
I mean, this is where we are bringing it to you guys, like, do you guys, as the representation of the community,
I guess number 3 for adding sidewalks, if there's a route that would be commonly, whether it's kids going to Owen Middle School or kids coming down to go to the bike park out of Grovemont, and there are roads that don't have sidewalks as a priority, I'd be okay with adding
Or
that.
cross, does that imply a crosswalk?
Yeah.
Strike crosswalk? That I'm okay with. I mean, that's a safety feature.
So let's just ask about 1 and 2. Can we just make a decision about 1 and 2 for now?
So just one quick comment, because I think we should all read the bold here, and I don't know that everyone has, because it says 8 people asked for additional sidewalks, 6 people asked for fewer sidewalks. 7 people asked for additional bike areas, 2 asked to prioritize a greenway rather than on-road bike lanes, and 2 asked for fewer bike lanes, and 6 asked that no bike lanes be allowed anywhere. So like,
Take everything out because we got more.
I'm just saying, careful, because you're thinking we want to add bike lanes when 1 person has asked for them and 6 people have said they don't want any bike lanes anywhere. And do we want to add more sidewalks when we have 6 people ask for fewer sidewalks and 8 ask for more? So like, just if we're going on community feedback.
Well, but just don't forget that those are people that made specific comments, but the feedback is
Okay, yeah, well, that's.
90+% said they liked it as is, no changes requested.
So as no changes requested, 90-something% is pretty good. I'm just saying, be careful reopening this debate and just piecemealing little things when we have pretty clear.
Like the transportation improvement map, that's this one. It has multimodal safety improvements, like marked on it, and I'm like, this. That's why I was like comparing these two, like, it seems like these should be the priority areas, the areas that are highlighted on here, right? Like, not all of the additional ones necessarily that are on the. And I don't know if we could code them 2 different colors or something, but these are the places where the community said that they're really critical issues, right?
So do we want to keep our sidewalk and bike lane map as is, and we will move forward with the version we have?
Yes.
Yes, good.
Yeah. I guess the other thing, we settled the question about the number 3, the sidewalk priority.
we're keeping it as it.
That would be just as is.
Live with that.
Okay.
I would be in favor of number 3, but I'm not.
So on this map, we are talking about 25 people requesting a specific change out of 270 something, and those specific changes are numbered. The only one that had more than 1 comment was the request to continue traffic calming along the full length of 70 and not just have it in those.
Do you remember how many people?
It was like 2 people.
So again, no consensus. It's gone to the public already. We're just presenting you.
These are the results of the engagement.
And people will have a chance to make comments on the map again, ask. It's a draft.
When we say traffic calming, what are we talking about? What
So
kind of
that's-
structure is there?
typically, so when we talk about traffic calming, you're calling that out specifically because it is different than speed limit reductions. So we are not in this plan outlining which traffic calming. We're not saying speed humps, speed bumps, bulb outs, chicanes. We're not getting into detail like that, but the reason we are saying traffic calming and not just speed limit reduction, because speed limit reduction is just a sign on the side of the road. You can choose to ignore it or not. Traffic calming is a physical change to the road design itself or the environment that naturally either encourages or forces people to slow down. So it's a physical change to the road, whereas speed limit is just the sign on the road telling you what you should be driving. That's why those are two separate recommendations. Say that again?
Yeah, like where's Martin? I can't place
Martin Road.
I can't place there.
Which one is it? What number is that?
Number one is New Salem and Martin Road.
Where's Martin?
It's like Red Lamar. Right, do you remember where Swannanoa Valley Animal Hospital?
I think it's that one.
Right behind there.
Yeah.
That's Martin.
Okay.
Okay, so do you guys wanna discuss these? Do you feel the same as you did about the last set?
I guess I would maybe call attention to 4, 5, and 6. Rosemont, because that does seem odd. The speed limit variations in Grovemont do seem.
There are some 55 mph in Grovemont, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
I know. That doesn't make any sense to me.
There is on Alexander Avenue is technically listed as a 55 mph zone, whereas most of Grovemont is 20.
Yeah, that just doesn't make sense at all. That's like a mistake.
Seems like a
Maybe that
typo.
should be 35 and up.
Yeah, and that's, so, you know,
I expected
I know Wilson,
There's 55.
yeah, Wilson and Grovemont, avenues, you know, odd that everything 25 and those are 35.
So do you guys wanna add that to the map? Is that, is Carol a proposal, cause it is very odd and most neighborhoods are like 20, 25.
Yeah.
So are we good with that one? That's why we
What do we
reviewed
have,
that.
4, 5, 6?
4, 5, 6, are we good adding those?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is to
Making it
recommend
consistent.
speed limit reductions on those higher Grovemont area roads.
Yes.
Okay,
Making it what, all 25 or whatever.
We wouldn't even need to put in a recommendation, we would just say we would like lower speed limit, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that is?
We decide on number one.
I'm literally.
We were only calling out, she asked if we wanted to talk about any of those, and I brought up.
Can I-
5 and 6.
Can I propose a substitute for number one?
Yeah.
Can we replace the idea of traffic calming in that stretch with a speed limit reduction for that stretch? I agree with the traffic calming on either end of it, but why would there not be a speed limit reduction?
That is the section that reduces to 45, I believe.
yes, cause it's already reduced.
It goes from, it's like 55,
Okay, so
and
it's
then it
already-
goes
it's
45.
So man, the fact that you've been doing 60 through that area. It's not.
Well, over yet.
Just slow down. 70 is gonna be hard for any of our recommendations
Yeah.
because of the nature of that road to get improvements will be.
But given that that speed limit is lower for that section, I'm not sure I favor
What about
more traffic calming in there.
number 9? I thought we already talked about traffic calming in the downtown.
We had speed limit reductions proposed, but someone from the public pointed out that there was no traffic calming recommended in that area.
I think we need to.
I think we do need traffic calming.
Okay, so traffic calming in the Swannanoa?
In the town center, yeah.
In downtown.
Yes, okay.
It depends on what kind it is.
Well,
Would that be a great community project?
I
Mayor
know,
Levin?
but-
Some traffic calming is horrible.
Yes.
The right traffic.
Horrible.
well, we already
Just-
know they can't put speed
Okay.
bumps on
Yes.
Whitson because of the emergency vehicles, but traffic calming.
You can't put
Other measures should be.
If we're discussing that about Swannanoa Town Center, the Grovemont Park and Library, sort of in category number
And-
8.
And number one, like, what does it actually mean? Can you help us imagine what that would look like?
That one specifically 70 would be saying to DOT, will you give us any options?
Okay.
Are there any things you're willing to do for
Right.
that? The other, so Grovemont, the town center, we have much more, they are much more willing to have conversations in those
For
areas.
years, they've been trying to close that road that's right adjacent to the Swannanoa Library. There's two different roads that take you up into the rest of the Grovemont community. One of them is right next to the Swannanoa Library, it's in between the library and the park.
Yeah.
I've been trying to close that road. That would be the best traffic calming that we could do.
So do we
Because
want to add 1 and 8? Is that? the
Yes,
proposal?
so right now the proposal is 4, 5, and 6, 1, 8, and 9. Everybody good with this?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Okay, so,
When you have time, there is a lot of information in this packet. It's what we present to the public. So take a look at it.
do we want to hear from, we only have time to do one more thing. Do we want to talk about the August public engagement? That could be an email easily. Or do we want to hear from Liz about the Swannanoa downtown redevelopment study that she's going to be presenting with Mountain True?
That's the woven together?
Yes.
But Liz is not here because she went to put the food away.
Never mind.
So we better go over that August schedule.
All right, so the next engagement phase is in August. That's so funny. And we are proposing, our plan is to do a public exhibit like we did for the comprehensive plan. So what that would be be a week or two period where we set up an exhibit out in the community where people can come in at, various times of the day, stay for as little or as long as they want. Weekday, weekend options, day and night options. And it would be a staffed exhibit, but it would be kind of like a walkthrough, self-service, look at the posters. So what you have in this packet is an example of what we did with the comprehensive plan. So obviously Swannanoa plan would be different, but there's some pictures of the boards, and the point of this would be for someone to walk through and see what's all the engagement we did, who was involved, what were the decisions that were made along the way, and what's the final draft say. And then the end of that exhibit would be, please give us feedback on this draft. Whether you want to change, do you like it, do you hate it, what needs to be different? And that would be.
How do they give the feedback?
They would be giving it through a poll, similar to how we've done the polls where you have a paper option or a virtual option. It'd probably be 5 or 6 questions on the poll. And they could take it right.
If somebody comes physically to
They could do it online.
so you'll have stations set up where they can do it right there? Or a paper where they fill it out
So
there?
usually if it's in person, we have them do it paper.
Paper, right.
But we will have, with every in-person option, we have a virtual option. So we had like a virtual exhibit online for the comp plan, and we would probably use the exact same software and do it.
They were able to like walk through the different posters and see the images and do all that kind of like a virtual version of it.
And it would probably be 2 days in that 2-week period, extended hour. And you can see, as you look at our engagement, we have, and you want, as you go through your engagement phases, people drop off, people have done everything, and you get fewer and fewer engagement as you go on.
I make a strange suggestion
Oh.
about, this is great. I suggest that you flip it so that you're walking through it counterclockwise instead of clockwise.
Counterclockwise, starting with the
I
decisions.
say that
that are-
because I just saw a video about the weird social science stuff that's been done about human beings will tend to naturally be inclined to go in a counterclockwise direction. When people get lost in the woods, they tend to walk in circles in a counterclockwise direction.
So you're not saying
Grocery
start
stores.
at the end, you're saying literally physically make them go counterclockwise.
Yes.
Oh.
Make the, well, yeah, I mean, just take this plan and flip it so that when you enter, you're starting to the right and you work your way around counterclockwise around the room, like grocery stores are laid out. And they're the reason that they're done that way, it's because your human tendency is to do that.
Internet club.
It'll help people's psyche, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you can, you know, if.
The helping and
Comparable
meaningful.
video I watched is just a crackpot,
I
you
mean,
know,
that's kind
but
of cool.
Google it and see if that's a real thing, because if it
Yeah.
is, then it might make sense just to flip
Well, one of the
out.
questions we had for you all about this idea was, are there any specific locations? I think one of the days we'll have it at the Whitson Avenue building, but are there other places where it would be beneficial to make that available?
So
Beach Street Fire Station.
For the Beach Street Fire.
Beach Street Fire Station,
Would that be, we were worried that that's a little
It's not out of the way.
out of the way.
That's not out of the way for
Really,
them
it's
to
not
live
out of the
over
way.
there.
Okay.
There's that,
it's right by my house.
yeah.
It's right there, I have. That's not good.
You can have it at the middle school cafeteria.
Yeah.
The school didn't start yet.
Oh, school would be out of, oh,
School
no.
doesn't start till about.
Yeah, school would
20th or
still be
so.
out.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
school would be.
Talking about for all middle or,
You could do Owen Middle or
oh, middle would be good. Williams.
Okay.
Williams Elementary.
So we'll see where we can get in.
But either Owen Middle or Peachtree.
Owen Middle, you're gonna only do one?
We're gonna do two.
I mean, Owen Middle and Beechtree would be two kind of locations that a lot of, that's spread out across a lot of small.
I'm talking about 216 Whitson.
Or
Oh.
the, yeah, the church.
You want us to pick two out of the
Beechtree.
three, like the top two?
216 Winston we are doing because we are doing the play, the Asheville.
The puppet show.
We're doing the puppet show.
Yeah.
That,
Where do we go?
huh?
I think the first.
The first thing. Sure.
Perfect.
Gotta say it's the first. But we are doing the puppet show that we did for the kids. And then we're gonna do the exhibit. So if you have grandchildren or
You
children,
know when that is?
or you're young at heart,
Or you just
come to
love
our
puppet
puppet show.
shows. You did it first.
We will send you date.
Yeah.
So I will be sending you after this meeting, the draft Swannanoa plan for you to review prior to our July meeting.
How many pages is
I'm even
that?
terrified.
How many pages is
It's only like, it would be at 45. We're at
Don't
45.
put only in front of 45.
It's mostly that long because of all the tables that we just reviewed.
Okay.
It's
all
like-
table.
Most of it's the tables. But please do review it before our meeting so we can just.
This never got circulated.
Yes,
so.
That would be
please
great.
sign before you
And
go.
also, you've got validation.
Yeah, last meeting,
That,
No.
we're gonna formally like approve the plan and recommend it to the commission.
so you guys would recommend any changes, we make any changes. The planning board makes a formal recommendation.
And you
So
probably
we
just said the date, so say it again.
Shannon, what's the date?
The meeting?
13?
No, you just said
It's
it.
on your second page of today's packet.
Not 13.
That'll be one. Yeah, I already have.
Do you have a?
And if we have time at that meeting, we'll have Liz do the presentation.
Anybody else?
I did.
That's
What do I do?
Already.